Chapter 21, Countermeasures. Regarding to Then's complex psychological behavior, Ho Nu knew nothing at all. She lowered her voice deliberately and explained, although when a training room is occupied by players others cannot enter, if the room owner agrees then others can still enter. She continued, in this way several people share one room, splitting the usage fee and saving money. She added, there are also teams that cooperate to train together and deliberately call each other to train. She said, if someone wants private training they can add friends on their watch, and about half an hour before the session ends they will call other people to come. She concluded, thus, every day 3 or 4 people take turns training, ensuring the room is not stolen while still giving enough time and preventing point waste. Van Nan chimed in, so the key is how to seize a training room? Exactly. Ho Nu smiled proudly, fortunately that step has already been completed. She said, not long ago I seized a room by seizing an opportunity. Besides you and Hung Xie, is anyone else participating? Tu then asked. Ho Nu replied seriously, no. She said, I wanted to ask your opinion first before making a decision. She added, right now Hung Xie is in the training room and I am here waiting for you too. Tu then knew she was indirectly trying to befriend them. Then Ho Nu proactively said, 4 people fit nicely in one room. She proposed, if you two agree to join, we will schedule training and rest later, and anyone who wants to train can write their times on the timetable. Her words had a taste of trying to flatter them. Van Nan spoke first, I only have the basic martial set now, 2 hours a day is enough, the rest can be divided among others. Tu then fell silent. Judging by his pace 8 hours of daily training still seemed insufficient. After thinking, he tossed an equipment piece to Ho Nu, some items I plan to trade, but since you helped secure the training room, take it. Ho Nu examined it instinctively and found it was an equipment piece, her face showing surprise and joy. She said, a simple ring. Tu then explained, its main feature is ordinary, nothing special, it gives +2 to intellect when worn. Initially Ho Nu only thought having good relations with these two might help her later in dungeons, but she never expected someone to give her equipment outright. She knew drop rates were extremely low and she had not picked up any equipment in 2 previous dungeons. Ho Nu inwardly sighed, this is truly a boss. Following someone like this will surely bring good prospects. She immediately answered, absolutely not. Hung Xie and I thought our funds were enough for 6 hours a day. She continued, if you train a bit longer each day you are helping us. She explained, training grounds charge by the hour, the longer you stay the fewer points you earn. She admitted, no choice, we are poor. She asked, are you two free now, and suggested, if not, quickly make a timetable for rest and training. Van Nan and Tu then agreed. After negotiation, morning 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock became Van Nan's training time, 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening became Tu Then's, and the rest was arranged by Ho Nu and Hung Xie. Van Nan inwardly felt the timetable exuded a dark, transactional breath. Does anyone want to train today? Shall I contact Hung Xie? Ho Nu asked, adding friends on her watch and smiling even more earnestly. Contact him, Tu then waved, radiating masterly presence. Ho Nu excitedly ran off. Van Nan teased, I never thought you would give equipment away, I'm not used to it. Tu then brushed it off, it's small and I can't use it anyway. Van Nan considered, you can't use it? Tu then said casually, each player can equip 6 items, pants, top or dress, shoes, weapon, and 2 accessories. I just obtained 2 decent accessories and don't plan to change now, so the ring is useless to me. He added, in light of our previous cooperation in the dungeon, this information is free. He glanced at Van Nan and said meaningfully, don't treat my room like a thieves' den all day, I'm friendly to players with brains and good formations. Van Nan smiled slightly, give and take. She said, when an attribute reaches 20 points the system grants a special reward. Although she felt Tu then already knew, she did not mind. Tu then was slightly startled, what do you mean? Van Nan showed him the stats, base damage +10. She supplemented, 2 other options are attack range +5 or MP +100, both practical. Tu then was silent. Van Nan raised an eyebrow, finding it odd. Are you pretending again? She inwardly thought the act was convincing, as if he knew nothing. I'm not pretending, I truly didn't know. Tu then responded frankly. Van Nan doubted. Impossible, your initial attributes were higher than mine, how could you not know? Tu then said, I pursued balance. He showed his watch with stats: strength plus 11 plus 3, agility plus 8, constitution plus 18 plus 3, intellect plus 13 plus 2. The four attributes were indeed very balanced. Some people were masters of conversation, casually saying a few words and stirring emotions that made others want to take them down, yet because her information was useful, Tu then decided to forgive that person. By then Ho Nuo had contacted Hung Ca and reported, we can go to the training grounds now. She asked, who will go first? Van Nan volunteered, you all go, I'll buy some supplies. She said, from tomorrow I'll start arriving on time for training. All right. Ho Nuo agreed. Leaving aside how grueling Tu then's training would be, Van Nan strolled nearby. After the training grounds were publicized, most players who failed to secure rooms dared not leave and simply set up stalls on the ground. Only when she overheard two other players' conversation did she realize. What are you doing? You know you can't get in, better give up and do something else. Why is the auction house empty? Did everyone run here to sit? One said. The vendor sighed, although we say that, how can one really let go? He said, I still hold a sliver of hope, maybe I'll get lucky. Most players will be eliminated, everyone knows this. The vendor smiled bitterly, yet who doesn't harbor a little luck, perhaps fate favors them and they revive? He said, if you see it plainly, spend your points on comforts, after all you died once, living a bit longer is a gift. A customer sighed, sigh. But soon he shifted to bargaining, this equipment is too expensive, you're idle here anyway, give me a discount for a sale? The vendor was displeased, I already failed to secure a training room and now you haggle? Get lost, no money means don't bother me, my mood is bad. Their intense bargaining widened Van Nan's eyes. She kept walking. In the second dungeon she had looted quite a few items like health potions and mana potions, enough for now without replenishing, but for equipment she only had a frost staff, a mage robe and a ring. Van Nan wanted to trade for pants or shoes but found nothing suitable, which was natural given low drop rates and many players, leaving barely enough to equip herself, nothing to spare for sale. At the end of the street she grew lazy to continue and sat to set up a sidewalk stall, throwing down a team rotation book and shouting, team rotation book, trade only, not for sale. Many had never heard of it and perked up. Some were ecstatic and immediately opened their watches to call others. One hurried over with a landowner air, offering one health potion for exchange. Van Nan was silent, then coldly said, if you're trying to get a bargain you're at the wrong person, get lost. The man angrily retorted, do you know who I am? Saying it will scare you to death. I am. He was cut off as a frost bolt flew from the staff and aimed at his face, but a transparent protective ring stopped the attack. Still he screamed in fright, and when he realized the attack failed he regretted speaking. Van Nan was icy, what are you? Continue. She threatened, in the last dungeon a player was too entangled, I fed him to the monsters. She said, quickly tell me your name so I can remember, next time I see you I'll escort you to death for free. The would-be bargain appalled and fled without more words. Crayon one stroke from you and the translation thickened. Chapter 22, On Lack. A young man walked over with excitement in his eyes yet arrogance on his face and said, say it, what do you want to trade? Van Nan's gaze sank as she guessed he had just left the intermediate training yard, his proud bearing screamed that he was a fat sheep, and his calm air suggested he held plenty of good items. She weighed things in a heartbeat and smiled, mage pants or shoes, the exact deal depends on the stats. He frowned after a long hesitation and asked, must it be mage gear, can other classes work? She cut it off, goodbye. When invited to team she answered, no interest in joining, and he lectured that stocking red and blue potions would suit her better. Van Nan retorted, do I look that gullible? Red and blue potions are one-time consumables while gear is lasting power. He was speechless. She pressed, the item is valuable and several buyers already asked, highest price wins, miss it and do not regret it. He yielded a name, I am on lack, you must have heard, treat it as I owe you a favor. She scoffed inside at how pricey his favor sounded and said, what is on lack, never heard of it. His eyes narrowed since it had been long since he met someone so stubborn and oblivious. He warned in a low voice, I cleared the last 2 dungeons in a flash, do not offend me. She stayed calm, I cleared them too, that talk is useless, without the right price do not think of the scroll, oh someone is coming, please step aside, do not block, pity it is only a passerby not a customer. He fell silent. She analyzed coolly, you look strong, if you are a solo player you do not need a team scroll, so I guess you want to care for someone, team scrolls are scarce, miss this and you may not see one, decide quickly, time waits for no one. She would not yield even to a Chunibyo type, which means a teen delusion syndrome. He pressed his lips and stayed quiet because she was right that he wanted it for someone else. He grudgingly conceded, you are lucky, team scrolls are few but not that precious, they are single use which means every entry needs regrouping, if not for Onso then. At last he compromised. She asked, Blood Brothers. He snapped, what do you know, that is obviously an online lover's name. His cold arrogance vanished. She suddenly recalled the truly painful attribute of the true feelings rings and shivered. She waved, whatever lover or brother, show the item. He bit his lip and took out a pair of shoes from his pack with deep reluctance. She was stunned with praise since her robe gave defense +1, constitution +1, intelligence +3 which was decent, yet these shoes were even stronger and could be called top tier. He almost spat blood, glared at the shopkeeper and growled, these top shoes were prepared for Onso, if you do not want them then return the gear and I will find someone else to buy the team scroll, I do not believe the second dungeon dropped only 1 scroll. Hugging the Heaven Star boot she hesitated then said, answer one more question as a bonus, okay? He flared, say it quickly. She asked what she had long wondered, do you know how the system assigns teammates? She had met to them twice and found it odd, and she ignored his dark face. She coaxed him, since you have friends you must have checked this, tell me and you can take the team scroll now. He finally spoke, from what I know those who died in the same incident are more likely to be placed in the same novice dungeon, I died in a traffic accident so my teammates were people on the same vehicle, if one dies alone the system assigns randomly. As for the second dungeon using a team scroll can form a party to enter directly or the system matches by similar strength with a slightly higher chance to meet familiar teammates and then random distribution, roughly like that. He immediately urged, team scroll. She pondered because it seemed the system wanted players grouped into teams, then tossed him the scroll and said, thanks, after which she changed shoes, packed the stall, and left at ease. His eye twitched and he threatened under his breath, do not let me meet you in a dungeon again. After changing shoes Van Nan went to the intermediate training yard to start intermediate ranged basics, 20 moving humanoid targets appeared and a transparent prompt said, please complete the lesson within the white frame, first class has hit the target at center field, current progress is 0 of 20. It was as expected that after fixed target practice would come moving target drills, she brightened and attacked but the result was poor since 10 shots yielded 6 hits. She was not surprised because in the second dungeon against the bats her calm and high hit rate came from lightning which autolocks with 100% certainty, with 10 attacks as 5 lightning and 5 ice bullets. If the ice bullets hit 3 times the apparent hit rate looked like 80% while the true rate was only 60%. She took a deep breath and focused fully on training books. She cheered herself, bring it on. 10 arrow towers firing together looked grand. She stood still not from fear but from a rule she had found, arrows take about 3 seconds to arrive, agile players can dodge within that window. She could not so she chose another way by computing trajectories in an instant to step into dead angles. In the first wave she quickly solved the position and avoided all arrows with a few steps. In the second wave the angles changed with straight shots and curving shots, she turned sideways to shrink her profile yet still took 2 arrows, cried out, gritted her teeth, and focused because the third wave would be harder and she could not relax. In a blink arrows poured like rain, she hugged her knees and curled on the ground, 5 arrows struck her and the third lesson ended. She grimaced as pain shook her body and nearly buckled when she stood up, then a mechanical voice said, congratulations on completing basic footwork elementary, you have grasped elementary footwork, agility +2. She rejoiced, good reward and worth the effort, since days ago she had seen that with her talent finishing footwork on skill alone was impossible without huge time. The intermediate track also cost time yet felt easier than elementary footwork. Because 2 footwork classes were already cleared, it would be a pity to drop them, so she racked her brain for a way to claim the completion reward, which was basically exam cheating. She decided, the footwork track ends here and I will not study it again. Once resolved, she felt lighter. After finishing basic footwork, she left the elementary yard and advanced to the intermediate courses, which also added 2 training hours per day for her. Then, on the 14th day after the second dungeon ended, he finally finished the elementary program and began a new grind. At that moment he was shocked to find the intermediate yard crowded. Nearby 2 players were as helpless as he was. One moaned that he thought focusing on one subject would avoid the crowd and grant a happy free choice of rooms. The other pulled the same long face and said everyone thought so and now they must fight for rooms again. Because the next dungeon was near to, then allowed himself a break and strolled around for a while. Chapter 23, The Third Dungeon Part 1. Van Nan ignored everything and first looked at her teammates. Seeing someone blink at her, she involuntarily put her hand to her forehead and sighed. Indeed, they met again. Then's mood on the other side was so dark he did not want to speak. The dungeon only had 4 people, yet they ran into this girl again. The black watch displayed the mission reminder clearly. Main mission, kill 20 elite monsters, do not allow any beast to pass the teleportation formation, completing the mission grants 200 points. The next warning line made the air heavier. Friendly fire is possible. If a teammate attacks and HP drops to 0, the player dies and their profile will be deleted. Another note appeared, reminding that clearing the dungeon does not award attribute points, killing an elite grants 1 free attribute point. An additional note stated that from this dungeon onward, clearing will not grant attribute points, they can only be obtained by special methods. Van Nan thought inwardly that conflicts of interest were present, and with players able to attack one another, the rules clearly encouraged infighting. She felt fortunate. From the previous dungeon she had seen the hassle of equipping and unequipping, so before teleporting she put everything on, otherwise she would fumble. Van Nan did not bother to reply to Unlack and instead turned to the remaining young female student. Your name is Onso, right? Have you heard my name before? Onso showed an unexpected look of joy. It's her. Van Nan smiled like she held the upper hand and told Unlack. No returning it, I already said. The shoes are exchanged for the team artifact, a fair trade. Fair trade, my foot. Unlack roared angrily and suddenly lunged at Van Nan. Then stepped back silently, standing aside as if watching a play. Unlack looked down on her, his words thunderous, then lightning struck and a high female voice screamed sharply. It was Onso. Unlack stopped immediately. Seeing her convulsed from the shock, he became anxious and furious at Van Nan. You deserve to die. Calm down, young man. Van Nan calmly steadied, if you cannot control yourself you won't reach me before she dies. See clearly, her health bar is about half, if I strike 2 more lightning hits she will be dead. There is a weakness right beside you and you still provoke others? Van Nan shook her head in disdain, stupid. In the prior trade she had guessed it, the student Onso seemed a mage of low skill needing Unlack by her side, otherwise they might not meet again in another dungeon. Consider yourself lucky. Unlack muttered in resentment. He wanted to stop but Van Nan would not relent. If you want to fight then fight, if not then fine, think I'm just decoration? If you want a truce, pay for tea. Oh, her skirt isn't bad, give it to me. Shameless. Unlack's chest heaved from anger, if you have the guts fight me. What gives you the right to bully her? She is clearly your weak link, why should I take the shortcut? Must one choose hardship? Van Nan curled her lip, brushing off Unlack's taunt. Relying on force to snatch shoes and shamelessly lecturing me. When you win you oppress others with force, when you lose you preach morals. Don't put on airs with me, useless. Van Nan's stubbornness Unlack had tasted before. He bit his lip and told Onso, give her the skirt. Onso retorted with disgust, you want clothes someone else wears? Yes, I am not picky. Van Nan said in a sly tone, "If you agree to remove all your gear, I will gladly take it all." Anso bit her lip and refused to remove the skirt. Since outer gear hid inner clothes, she had no fear of exposure. Suddenly she remembered something and her eyes lit up. She said loudly, "You cannot take my gear." "Why not?" Van Nan thought. "We've reached the third dungeon and someone still lectures morals?" "Because I helped you." Anso spoke with righteous logic. "Helped in dreams, perhaps?" Van Nan's face remained expressionless. She thought the girl might be crazy. Anso hurriedly said two important words: canteen. Training ground. Hearing that, Tevent's expression shifted slightly as if he realized something. Van Nan's face stayed calm, her gaze deep. She asked outright, "Are you the one who leaked the training ground news?" "Yes." Anso puffed her chest proudly, "That was me." "Why? NK books." Van Nan had wanted to ask for a long time. Anso answered matter-of-factly, "We are comrades in the same battle group, helping each other is normal. Just now your boyfriend charged at me and I did not see you help the team." Van Nan said coldly, "That is because you stole my shoes." Anso could not help arguing. "Did I hold a knife to your boyfriend's throat to force him to swap the team artifact for the shoes?" Van Nan found her logic bizarre. Teven had silently moved to Van Nan's side long ago, standing without a word. In Van Nan's eyes he seemed the instigator who made the training ground crowded, preparing to settle accounts. But in Anso's eyes he was repaying her favor. There were 4 people in the team, 2 sided with her, so Anso spoke with full confidence, "It was your fault. I helped everyone reach white rank, you stole my shoes." Van Nan was speechless. By her logic, maybe Van Nan should have offered the team artifact voluntarily to show respect. Heaven knows how badly she had been tricked. Even the intermediate training ground was being fought over. If you're so attached to shoes, don't try to buy the team artifact as if it were owed to you. Van Nan stayed silent, and Anso, thinking she intimidated her, continued proudly, "Unlack wouldn't reveal anything. This is the reward for those with sharp observation. Without me you all would know nothing." Those words sounded different to others. Teven squinted. Someone stopped her, yet she insisted on speaking? Firmly persistent, she must have prepared to bear the consequences. "Originally we are comrades in the same battle group and should support each other, not hide things, revive together, how wonderful." No one answered, and Anso rambled on. "When Unlack found the training ground he wouldn't let me tell anyone. It is thanks to my kindness I did not hide it." Van Nan could no longer restrain herself and asked Unlack, "Tell me, why do you value her so much?" The training ground wasn't discovered by her, yet she claims credit. Van Nan began to suspect Unlack of being from another planet. Unlack defended his girlfriend. Anso is the academy goddess, beauty unmatched, fans come from other schools just to see her once. Van Nan sighed. Apparently Unlack picked his girlfriend by looks alone. Indeed, Anso with flowing hair and a dress was beautiful, but such a refined face saying absurd things ruined it. After a while of whining, Van Nan grew bored and held out her hand. "Give the skirt here, otherwise I'll have lightning strike you again." Changing someone's convictions is hard work, and Van Nan would not waste effort. Anso fell silent. "Hey, you only want the gear, no need to take lives, right?" Van Nan noticed Unlack's worry for his girlfriend. "Isn't it because she refuses to give it? She talks a lot of nonsense." Van Nan detested it deeply. Unlack used force to seize gear because in this game the strong become leaders, force equals truth. Everyone digs pits for one another and the one who laughs last wins. But Anso lives in her own world and voices her beliefs which annoy others. She ignores game rules and does as she pleases. Worse, Anso's lack of sense combined with Unlack's indulgence means strength plus foolishness greatly increases harm. Frankly, Van Nan did not want someone like that on the same team. Who knows what trouble she would cause? Thoughts turned and layered, many ideas flashed, and finally Van Nan decided not to take the gear and instead cut Anso down to end the trouble. As for Unlack's revenge, he acts strong, but she had not yet seen how strong he truly was. Glancing at Teven fidgeting nearby, Van Nan considered whether to take the gear and let Teven have the chance to strike. Chapter 24, Dungeon 3, Part 2. Silken trousers, woven from high-grade silk, premium material. When worn, stamina +2, intelligence +2. Van Nan held the trousers and quietly wondered if striking back immediately would be shamelessly rash. While she hesitated, To then cut in and said, "Finished? My turn? Ah, I've long wanted to beat you up." Then he lunged toward Onso. "Any mutt dares to barge in and insult me. Think I'm a vegetarian or what?" Onlak raged and stepped forward to take the blow instead. When fists met, Onlak stepped back 1 pace, while To then retreated 2 paces in succession, losing ground. At that moment Onso twirled her staff, red and white light surged onto Onlak, while black light settled onto them. Immediately Onlak charged. To then couldn't dodge and froze stiff, so Onlak stood unhurt while To then retreated another 5 or 6 steps. Van Nan muttered, "Turns out she's a pure support." She reasoned that buffing their side and debuffing enemies would widen the gap against foes of similar strength. Riding the advantage, Onlak roared and lunged at To then, intending to finish him in one move. From Van Nan's view, Onlak had been provoked earlier but restrained himself for Onso's safety. Now he vented all anger on To then. On the other side, To then hadn't expected Onlak, who looked inexperienced, to be so tough. He struggled and felt frustrated because defeating him wasn't simple. To then only had one ranged attack skill, Saint Boundary, whereas Van Nan could flank Onlak to hit on so easily. The more they fought, the more alarmed Onlak became because although Onso's damage seemed lower, their clash made his health fall faster. Without her constant heals his bar might already be yellow. Onlak found it odd since his stamina was full at 20 points and he had received the unique reward defense +3. Could the opponent's defense really be higher? Boom! As To then and Onlak separated, lightning struck between them and Van Nan coldly warned, "Stop fighting, elite monsters are coming. Help me kill it." Onlak shouted, thinking Van Nan only reacted to provoke profit and their conflict wasn't a life or death grudge. To then, however, was different. He resented Onso for exposing training ground secrets and wanted to fight and kill at once, and Onlak felt such a threat could not be left alive. To then stood pale, appearances aside. If chance allowed he would not hesitate to stab Van Nan. "Stop the chaos. My precious points cannot be wasted on penalty waivers for failed missions." Van Nan snapped and struck a lightning bolt beside Onso but purposely missed to intimidate. Onso kept silent, eyelids twitching, annoyed that she was still the one being threatened. Onlak shouted, "Onso," and rushed to help, and To then, losing his target, also ceased. Onlak approached Van Nan, face dark, whispering in a poor tone, "Do you really want to leave her in the Chuan Bok camp? She's a ticking bomb that could explode any time." Van Nan answered calmly with cold eyes, "Of course not, I simply don't want to lose 200 points for failing the stage." To then remarked there were only 20 elite monsters, they could cooperate and handle it since this dungeon wasn't too hard and offered rewards. Van Nan analyzed that with full HP and MP they could manage, but after dealing with Onlak would he still have enough HP and MP? She noted Onlak had passed 2 prior dungeons and wasn't weak. To then grew serious. If nothing else, his strength is likely already 20 points and he got a special defense reward. Van Nan pointed to Onso, who had at least 3 skills and near-perfect gear, clearly looted many good items before. Van Nan advised wiping out elites first and then turning on each other. She could use Onso to intimidate and force Onlak into unpaid labor to clear monsters, claiming the kill rights and rewards, making this dungeon paradise for her. To then felt awkward but knew only Van Nan could execute such a plan because she tightly controlled Onso. If he interfered he might be ganged up on by 3. Van Nan smugly said, "I eat well, rest assured." To then suggested splitting 10 elites each, which he considered fairest. Van Nan tilted her head and asked what his basis was for that split, and To then replied that failing to gain 20 attribute points could seed a grudge, so half the reward was better than losing 200 points, also he could assist if Onlak tried anything. Van Nan fell silent, inwardly horrified by the reckless tactic of hugging monsters to the teleport plate, a move only To then would conceive. Still, she admitted To then had no mortal grudge, he merely threatened enough to justify cooperation. In the end Van Nan sighed and conceded, "You win, elites are split evenly." Her stamina was now 11 points, killing 10 more elites would net her 20 points. She fretted another issue: what if Onlak also planned like To Then? To Then scoffed, with his intelligence, he can't be as cunning as me. Van Nan watched him blankly, fingers itching to punch, thinking she could have monopolized the dungeon, but the situation grew oddly complex once others intruded. While they debated, Onlak could not contain himself and roared, "Hurry up and support!" He had stealthily taken on So to snatch the kills, believing 2 of them could clear 20 elites. But in combat he realized the enemies were fused rock beasts with high defense and massive HP. Their damage was low but they were hard to shave down, and after half a day the slow HP drop was despairing. Onlak panicked as Van Nan feared losing 200 points and rewards while Onlak and Onso lacked 100 points each. Failure would mean death. Putting aside pride for the greater good, he called the others to assist. Please untangle the twisted lines of text so the story flow smooths out. Chapter 25, Third Dungeon. People know best about their own house, and Onlak counts among the fiercest players. Even while carrying her he still clears in streaks and racks up many merit points. By right she skips training and never feasts every day, so she should not spend much, yet she has a pricey hobby called shopping. Onso cannot grasp why she is stubborn about buying things. Bags and perfumes and pretty clothes and home decor all call to her. Once she fancies them she must bring them home. Many items prove needless after purchase, but in the moment her head runs hot and her hand pays. No pile of points survives such bold burning. In the end she empties her own stash and wastes a fair chunk of Onlak's too. Luckily Onlak does not blame her, thinking so she presses her lips and decides to understand his bind and quietly obey commands. Very soon Van Nan and To Then join. Pressure on Onlak eases, only then he pouts and admits that strong teammates make things far lighter, while Onso aside from a small buff helps little. The 3 push hard and the lava fiend's health plummets. In no time it turns red. Onlak figures the next step is snatching based on each person's skill, so he holds his breath and focuses. Right then thunder booms beside Onso. Van Nan smiles and says, "We are taking all elite mobs. If you want to steal then consider your girlfriend's safety." Onlak. Team-wide snatching, how naive. Onso blurts, "Why should all elite mobs go to you?" "Because your little life sits in our hands," Van Nan says in a deep tone. Sinister, deceitful. Onso mutters, soft yet heard. Van Nan chuckles, "Who told you we are the good guys?" Onlak's eyes shift and he says slowly, "Elites in this dungeon are hard to handle. Without us you too likely fail." He tries to hint at the value of him and Onso to bargain. To Then follows, "If we miss the reward we will carry ahead back to White Lac City." Onlak is choked, and Onso wants to cry, feeling squeezed and extorted by 2 bullies. An ice round slashes past her cheek. Van Nan smiles, "Oops, my hand shook," with no remorse on her face. Onlak tenses and pulls his girlfriend behind to shield her. He clenches his teeth and yields, "All elites are yours, but do not touch us." "Fine." Van Nan agrees with mock mercy, while To Then only laughs coldly. That smile chills Onlak. He dares not gamble and can only endure, yet he still growls a warning, "If you leave no way out then even dying I will drag 1 or 2 down." "Fine." Van Nan answers. To Then's look turns stern. His physique now sits at 18, which means 2 more elite kills will reach 20 and unlock a special draw. Onlak keeps a calm face but bleeds inside. Those things should have been his. The dungeon goes on. The second elite is a tree sprite, much like the one from the one-time card To Then used in the novice run, thick-skinned and whipping with branches, and this one falls to Then. The third is a venom serpent that breathes toxic haze for sustained harm, and Van Nan deals the killing blow. After the 9th elite, Van Nan still pours points into physique. Now her physique reaches 16 and 20 is near. At last Onso cannot hold it. We just watch them take rewards while we toil like porters. She fumes and vents at her boyfriend. "Else what can we do?" Onlak retorts, ire rising since her weakness lets others clamp him, so why must he hear blame now? She has no words but refuses to be exploited. He tells her to endure because life matters more. She bows and keeps quiet, and he thinks she will behave and let it go. The 10th elite is a giant spider that spits web. Once its health turns red she suddenly fires a magic round straight at it. But it is late and thunder is already falling. She scrambles aside yet the bolts seem eyed and chase until they hit. She had prepared excuses like only assisting or an accident, yet the foes ignore reasons, touch an elite and they strike at once. NK Books. Worse, not one wave but 2 waves of Thunderland, her health dives to under 10%. Truly a time bomb, I read her right. To then murmurs. She cannot control herself and breaks the balance, do what she wants when she wants. He lowers his eyes and thinks that such a person cannot be kept. Enough. Unlike spreads to shield his girlfriend like a hen with her chick. Then Nan says lazily, your girl fails to read the board so I used lightning to clear her head, no need to get excited. I only attacked, I did not steal. On so still protests. I only attacked too, I did not kill you. Van Nan replies guileless. Now Then has slain the spider and he sighs, it is already the 3rd dungeon and your girl still acts like an outsider, she does not even grasp that attacking a mob is provocation, you guarded her too well. None of your business. On so grinds out, she dislikes games, when urged to train she promises perfunctorily or wheedles, if cornered she idles in the room for some hours then leaves, and when she spoke of the training yard before everyone it carried the intent to skip sessions. Onlak keeps silent, as the difficulty climbs he feels he must strain like a weight-bearer wading water, the longer it goes the harder it is to persist, maybe one day he will fail but surely not today. He nudges his girlfriend back 2 steps to protect her in tests, next I will watch her so she will not disturb you too, alright. Alright. Van Nan agrees for now while thinking it is not time to turn faces, wait until we kill 18 elites then talk. To then stays calm and says, continue. Yet when Onso meets his eyes she shivers, and Onlak still feels wary so he whispers, stay with me later, do not act alone. She nods in haste. The 11th elite is a water giant, Van Nan mutters, how many types of elites exist, it is already 11 with no repeats. To then stands aside like a patron, unmoving, while Onlak steps up to take aggro, and Onso rushes after him, but she tags too close and blocks the monster's path, the water giant roars and spits a water arrow straight at her. Van Nan. To then. Onlak. Van Nan freezes and exclaims, damn, she died just like that. At the same time Then is aghast, is this girl dim-witted? Watching his girlfriend fall, Onlak howls in grief, Onso. But she is truly gone. Her figure fades and a mechanical voice rings by the player's ears, player number 1423 has died, the player's record has been erased. To then glances at Van Nan and reminds, you weakened her first. Onlak escorted his girl to seek death, the elite delivered the killing blow, Van Nan cannot help but defend herself. To then's look turns odd, why does it sound like you, the elite, and Onlak were teammates? Van Nan. She draws a deep breath and entrusts a task to then, your time to shine, go stop him. Do you think you are summoning a Pokemon? To then is speechless. Chapter 26, The 3rd Dungeon, Part 4. Their fists collided and To then was stunned to find that Onlak's strength had grown far stronger than last time, although Van Nan had added a shield for him he still hissed as a sharp ache spread through his knuckles. Van Nan also sensed something was off, Onso is dead, no one is buffing Onlak, how can he overpower you? Die, all of you must die. After shoving To then back, Onlak did not even glance at him and shot straight toward Van Nan. Your girlfriend was not killed by me, alright? Feeling truly wronged, Van Nan shouted while sprinting to shake Onlak off, yet after a short dash she looked back and saw him right on her heels while To then still sat on the ground motionless. What are you doing? Van Nan snapped, why are you not coming to help me yet? It hurts, I cannot move. To then replied curtly and remained planted. Van Nan did not buy it, one punch and To then cannot move. The only explanation is that he is doing it on purpose. Earlier when the 2 men fought she did not assist, so now it is his turn to fold his arms and watch. Pitfall indeed, Van Nan gnashed her teeth in hatred, at every critical moment he proves unreliable, what is he even good for? Heavy nasal breaths sounded behind her and the pursuer was closing fast, killing intent surged and she thought she could handle Onlak alone, then abruptly veered toward the water giant. Onlak still clung to her without letting go, his expression twisting more and more. To then sat calmly to watch the show and even bowed to tie his shoelaces to add realism, though he wore no sneakers and had no laces to tie. As soon as she entered the water giant's attack range, a water arrow flew at her. Van Nan did not dodge but cast a shield on herself and circled behind the giant. Onlak was a step late. Seeing her hide behind the giant, he chose a head-on clash and charged forward, yet the blow did not reach Van Nan and instead slammed into the water giant. The monster roared in fury and focused entirely on Onlak. Then smiled quietly. If Van Nan and Onlak wounded each other while he stayed perfect, he could trade mercy for her assistance and monopolize the elite monster's reward, so he backed away and refused to meddle in their fight. The three-way struggle dragged on and the water giant's health turned red first, while Onlak attacked heedlessly as if he no longer valued his life. If attribute points and loot were taken by Onlak, it would be a pity. Thinking that and knowing Van Nan could not turn on him now lest they faced two fronts while Onlak only stared at her and ignored everyone else, then crept closer with a confident smile. The elite was surely his. Then grinned with delight and swiftly finished the water giant. He was about to wait for Onlak and Van Nan to tangle again and pick up more spoils when a surprise punch lunged at him. Then slipped past the lethal strike by a hair, frowned, and questioned Onlak, "What are you doing? Your enemy is over there." Onlak said nothing and rushed in with relentless blows. By then Van Nan had backed far away and laughed. "He has lost his reason, he bites whoever he catches, you cannot talk sense into him." When the giant was being hammered, she had noticed his gaze slowly drift away from her. "Get over here and help already!" Then shouted while scrambling to deal with Onlak and cried inwardly, his style was the kind that throws life away and never dodges. That kind of opponent is a nightmare. Van Nan plopped down and said lazily, "Tired, I cannot move." This girl, then could not help grinding his teeth. "Come on, finish him quickly, I believe you can do it." Van Nan cheered him on while taking a water bottle from her pack and sipping in small gulps. Then planned to lure Onlak toward Van Nan but found his speed and attack power had risen another notch. Damn it! Then was exasperated. This felt like fighting a boss. The easy early phase had been handled by Van Nan, and when the boss was about to go berserk, the burden shifted to him. With no other choice, he accepted his fate. Luckily, Onlak's health was down to about 1/3. Before long, Onlak fell and the mechanical voice told, "Player number 1424 has died, the player's profile has been erased." The corpse vanished and a scroll appeared where he had stood. Then picked it up to read. Skill, Rampage, grant Rampage to a target for 2 minutes. In this state the target gains 30% damage and 30% speed, loses 3 defense, and also loses reason and cannot tell friend from foe. Each cast costs 20 mana points. While Tithan and Onlak were brawling, the elite monster had slowly shuffled halfway along its path. "I am not at ease with you," Van Nan answered bluntly. In the newbie dungeon, teammates could happily fight the boss hand in hand because there was no friendly fire and no fear of a backstab, but now players can damage each other and even kill to drop items. Things are much messier and you never know who the throne skill will land on. Then curled his lip and finally spoke frankly, "Do you think I am at ease with you?" Earlier he stayed quiet only to avoid exposing his suspicion. In truth, he had guarded against her from the start. The air froze and both stayed silent for a long while. "If you think carefully, this dungeon may be the last chance to get attribute points. We should seize it," then said solemnly. Van Nan sneered, "If a person dies, what use are attribute points? Then there is only one last measure." Then took out the sincere affection rings and said coolly, "We bind as one and clear the dungeon together." Only by seizing an overwhelming early advantage could they hope to reach the end, so he would not give up any chance to gain points. Even such a good plan made Van Nan hesitate. If he trapped her after binding, it would be courting death. "Throw the ring here," Van Nan tried to agree. "After working together a few times, I feel you will not be easily trapped to death." At the same time, she put on the lady's ring. As soon as both wore them, the mechanical voice rang out, "Congratulations to players 520 and 521 for becoming partners. You will immediately form a party and enter the dungeon together. If either one dies, the other will die for love. Please cherish your beloved and love him or her as your own life. Once worn, the rings can never be removed. We wish you to grow old together and be joined in one heart. Grow old together, your little sister, joined in one heart, your whole family. I am the one at a loss here, right?" Then grumbled. In life he had been a promising rich second generation. He had not even had time to find a girlfriend, and after dying in this broken game he found one, and their feelings were so good they would live and die together. I am fully geared, what about you? Van Nan gave him a sideways glare like a woman at a blind date judging a man's poor conditions. Tu then quietly opened his windbreaker and she saw he already wore gear beneath. Van Nan fell silent, she had again forgotten his bad habit of hiding trump cards. Compared with you I only lack shoes, after this dungeon I will trade those 2 accessories and complete the set. Tu then added calmly. You win. Van Nan pressed her forehead and lost the mood to argue, hurry up and clear it. Soon only the last elite remained, Van Nan reminded, just now I raised Constitution to 20 and chose the reward of defense plus 5, that last free point is not important to me. Tu then replied honestly, my strength is a bit short of 20, but clearing should give attribute points so no rush. You should finish the last one. Van Nan yielded, whether there would be a free point this time was uncertain, ensuring to then reach 20 strength was safer, that is the benefit of a party because resource distribution yields the greatest total gain. Since we have become allies should we lay some things bare? Tu then did not hurry to leave and instead regarded his little teammate with leisure. Van Nan tilted her head, such as what? Lay it bare, fine. Van Nan agreed readily but then added, you speak first. Knowing his own dark history, Tu then did not object and handed over the watch. Chapter 27, Make Everything Clear. Tushin's talent is Heart of Earth, HP plus 200 and Defense plus 5, the damage reduction is Defense over Defense plus 20, with Defense 13 the reduction is 39.4%. His melee basics 1 grants close combat methods and adds 3 damage on melee attacks. His defense basics 1 grants primary guarding and adds 5 defense. His meditation basics 1 teaches basic breathing, restoring 20 HP per minute and 30 MP per minute. His footwork basics 1 grants primary steps and adds 2 agility. The reward of 20 physique adds 100 HP. The reward of 20 strength adds 10 base damage. His gear includes the Righteous Gauntlet with base damage 3 to 5, plus 3 base damage on frontal strikes, and the Lion Justice never fears a frontal challenge. He also wears golden silk armor that resists blades and elements, granting plus 2 defense and plus 5 physique. He also wears velvet knee pads that are warm for everyone, granting plus 1 defense and plus 2 physique. He also has the Sincere Affection ring for men with the line I will live and die with you, granting plus 10 physique and plus 5 intellect. That set makes Van Nan click her tongue, she thinks no wonder he stayed long in basic training since he practiced many parts. Your turn. Tushin looks at Van Nan. Van Nan hands over her watch calmly, her stats are Strength 5, Agility 10 plus 5, Physique 20 plus 15, Intellect 20 plus 10. Her talent is Fountain, HP plus 200 and MP plus 200, same reduction formula, with Defense 7 the reduction is 25.93%. Her ranged basics 1 grants ranged methods and adds 3 damage on ranged attacks. Her meditation basics 1 restores 20 HP per minute and 30 MP per minute. Her footwork basics 1 adds 2 agility. The reward of 20 physique adds 5 defense. Her gear includes the ice staff with base damage 5 to 7, every 2 seconds it fires an ice shot dealing 5 to 7 plus intellect and slowing for 1 second. She also wears a primary robe granting plus 1 defense plus 1 physique and plus 3 intellect. She also wears cloud skirt adding plus 2 physique and plus 2 intellect. She also wears star treading boots adding plus 1 defense plus 5 agility and plus 2 physique. She also has the Sincere Affection ring for women with the line I love you to death, granting plus 10 physique and plus 5 intellect. Her skills are Lightning Shield and Hail. Tushin blinks and repeats Hail, since he never saw her use it despite several runs. Van Nan explains it is area damage with control, and says recent dungeons were single target so she skipped it. Tushin hums and accepts. Where in White Lark City? Tushin asks again. Van Nan first thinks of a diner then changes to the training ground. The stalls near the auction move together, so going to the training gate is faster, early and final day clearers are friendlier, and she thinks few will clear this time so fighting for rooms is unlikely and window shopping may net good loot. Alright, see you soon. He teleports away. Back at the apartments, a machine voice reports that before Dungeon 3 Pure White had 4021 and Deep Black had 4003, now Pure White has 1672 and Deep Black has 1730, please keep striving. The death rate is near 60%, which is worse than the newbie dungeon. Van Nan stays calm since player killing and death were allowed, so she expected this outcome. The voice adds that in 15 days the faction war will start and asks players to survive. Hearing faction war, her spirit rises and she thinks a few more dungeons may let her revive smoothly. If you cannot win, you die, and none are exempt. Her eyes are firm and she says, I must survive. Outside the training ground she finds Tushin waiting. He points back and says basic rooms are packed and intermediate too, only advanced has space. Van Nan says as expected. Tushin adds that the good news is people now value points and stop dumping all into training. Better news is many spent 200 points to buy one life, so in 2 or 3 days rooms open since they lack points, but bad news is intermediate courses are very hard and cannot be finished quickly. Van Nan gives him a strange look and says, hearing you share all analysis feels unfamiliar. We are grasshoppers on one rope and I cannot trap you. Tushin says seriously. She shares back that after basic courses you can self-train. The effect is worse than the rooms but costs no points and beats idling. Tushin is startled. She asks, what is in your personal stash? Because I chewed potions to clear Dungeon 3, I only have 2 red potions, 1 blue potion, 2 accessories and 1 skill scroll dropped by Ing Luo. The random traps from mobs were used up, he admits. What did you do? Your wealth is pitiful, like you were robbed. By rights you should have more. Van Nan asks. Tushin growls, I traded for gear long ago, not everyone gets freebies like you. He was unlucky since his special boss reward was that useless sincere affection ring pair. Van Nan smiles since the star boots and cloud skirt were basically freebies. Gear prices are highest and my luck is bad, so mobs dropped tools or gear for other classes. Tushin sighs, luckily I had some skill scrolls or I could not even swap current pieces. She shakes her head at his misfortune. She counts her stash as 12 red potions, 3 blue potions, 1 bundle of time bombs, 1 party scroll, 1 skill scroll and 1 sword. The last party scroll was used. Other gear and skill scrolls were traded for red and blue. Sadly Dungeon 3 forced potion chewing, so many blue were spent or the stock would be bigger. Tushin falls silent. She killed 9 elite mobs and got 1 party scroll, 1 skill scroll and 1 sword, while he killed 11 elites and his bag still feels poor, like they entered different dungeons. This might be hard to use. Tushin offers the Berserk scroll since the side effects are huge. Van Nan studies the notes, then asks, can you give me the scroll? Tushin is speechless, then stresses we are one, since imagining himself Berserk makes him uneasy. It is not for you. She smiles and says, I want the enemy to use it, with faction war coming if the main tank drinks it. Tushin grows serious and says if used well the effect could be amazing. Such a sharp weapon must not fall elsewhere. Van Nan sighs and uses the scroll. The system says congratulations on learning Berserk. Now Tushin is truly broke, so she hands him her skill scroll and says, check this, it may suit you. Stone Skin adds 10 defense and lasts 2 minutes, each cast costs 15 MP. Tushin calculates that with Stone Skin his defense becomes 23 and reduction reaches 53.49%, meaning incoming hits are halved. Then I will not be polite. He uses the scroll gladly. Van Nan concludes that they will trade away the sword, the party scroll and the accessories, first swap shoes for him, then look for good skills, if none they will swap into red and blue. Tushin suggests skipping a walk and opening a curb stall so buyers come, since after another dungeon people know a reliable team is rare, making party scrolls the hottest item. Good. Van Nan sits to set up and calls out party scroll for shoes, hurry if you want to trade, there is only one. The moment she speaks the air around them changes at once. Found an error? Do not hold it, please fix it. Chapter 28, A Chance Reunion. Van Nan waved the scroll in her hand. Yes, this is it. The warrior asked cheerfully, how much to sell? Trade for boots or a good skill? Van Nan replied. The warrior pulled out a pair of boots from his pack in one swift motion, to then leaned over with interest. after reading the stats he only wanted to throw the boots at the warrior. Cloth shoes, made of cotton, when worn agility +2. Gear quality shows in bonus stats, this +2 pair is the most common on the market, really not great. You want top-tier gear for a mere party scroll? The warrior glared. Show him the boots you got last time with a party scroll. Tu then drawled. Van Nan lifted her robe to reveal Heavenly Star boots and displayed their stats. The warrior's pupils shrank, yet he bluffed. Whoever traded those boots was a fool. I will not be that foolish. The archer behind him lit up and hurriedly asked, Are those boots for sale? Not fooled, huh? The warrior frowned and struggled to think. Do you know who I am? He suddenly changed aura and spoke mysteriously. Van Nan said calmly, Last time someone tried to coerce me into selling, he is dead now. The warrior swallowed. Can we trade something else, still unwilling to give up? Tu then glanced coldly, I have the other pieces already, only missing boots. Alarms rang in the warrior's heart. He had misread. Someone wearing 5 pieces at once is not ordinary. Seeing their disdain for weak gear, he even suspected all 5 were top tier. How should I address you both? The warrior asked carefully. Call me support. Van Nan said. Priest. Tu then stared at him as if to memorize his face. The 3 fell silent. Sorry to disturb you, please keep making money, pretend we were never here. The warrior rattled and fled with his 2 teammates like they had seen a ghost. What was that? Van Nan muttered. She ignored it and quietly waited for the next customer. The 3 had run far, with the warrior's agility the lowest, so he lagged. Hold up. The warrior snapped. Those faithless jerks ran faster than rabbits and used him as a meat shield. Outrageous. Run faster, do not let them catch up. The archer yelled. His steps stiffened and he stopped, pondering, right, why are we running? A thought flashed and he justified, did the boss not run first? Of course we moved together. Then why did the boss run? The lone mage wondered. Just then the warrior gasped up, You tossed your boss and ran first, and did not even come back to fetch me. Too focused on running. The archer said, thick-skinned. The warrior really wanted to punch him. The mage stayed serious and asked again, Why did we run? They might not be the 2 tiger girl mentioned. The mage reminded. The warrior disagreed. Did you not see their gear? Normal supports cannot thrive like that. The few supports left are lucky ones scouted by strong teams. Even if it was them, we did not need to sprint like fools. The mage recalled and cringed. The warrior reasoned, what if they remember our faces? Better run as far as we can. He sighed to the sky, drained. Being handsome is truly a crime. The archer and the mage looked at each other, helpless. Their boss was fine in all ways, except being too confident in his looks. After a while the sword was also traded for health potions, only 2 accessories of Tu then lay lonely. Bunch of tasteless folks. Tu then grumbled, the trinkets he picked were not bad at all. Those who want them cannot afford, those who can likely already have same tier. Van Nan guessed. Tu then sulked. A mage walked over, how much for these accessories? Van Nan froze and blurted a name, Chu Hu? It is you too? Chu Hu had not noticed the stall owner's face earlier and now recognized them. Not bad, still alive. Tu then's greeting was unique. Chu Hu smiled bitterly, pure luck. You switched to mage? Van Nan eyed her staff and asked. Chu Hu nodded, someone regretted picking mage, I traded my bow for her staff, both happy. I see. Van Nan forced a laugh. They were not close, so small talk ran dry. Tu then pushed the sale, accessories for red potions, blue potions, or skill scrolls. If you have good stuff just show it, we can bargain. Van Nan saw him ready to dump stock and felt crazy, even if Chu Hu survived her means were likely limited. You two formed a party? Chu Hu asked suddenly. Van Nan replied. Doing okay? She continued. So. Van Nan played coy. Maybe. She stopped mid-sentence and shook her head, forget it. To then still chase the deal, 1 accessory for 6 red or 3 blue potions, very profitable. He braced for haggling, yet Chu Hu flicked her hand and produced 10 red and 5 blue at once, crisp, I will take all. To then was speechless, and so was Van Nan. The extra is your fee. To survive the novice dungeon, then secure attribute points and the 3rd wave loot, I owe you 2 thanks. Chu Hu said earnestly. Van Nan arched a brow, changed your temperament? First time they met she begged to hug thighs and asked pros to carry, now her aura had transformed. After finishing the novice dungeon I met some people and went through some things. Chu Hu breathed deep. Someone told me if this game feels too cruel to accept then run into a monster and die to be freed, or assume you died already and never started this rebirth, but if you know it is cruel and still want to live to the end then prepare well, those who fail to adapt fast will be eliminated, this is a survival game, not about morals, everyone does whatever it takes to live, that is all, what happens after victory in reality is a concern only winners can afford. Van Nan rubbed her chin, fine words, I want to meet that speaker. Chu Hu smiled wryly, hope we meet again. She took the accessories and left. What was that? Van Nan puzzled, she left without explaining. To then also felt odd, I thought she wanted to join, maybe not, she seems to be doing fine, casually tossed out a pile of red and blue. Whatever, the potions are ours. Van Nan closed the stall. As she stood she saw 2 people approaching, one swore as he walked, everything I said is true, those 2 are the strongest players I have met so far, if we can rely on them it will work. What day is it today? Van Nan murmured, she recognized one as Tiger Girl. What is it? To then asked Tiger Girl. Tiger Girl mustered courage, I want to ask you 2 for help. No time. To then refused instantly. Tiger Girl realized her phrasing was off and corrected, actually I have a commission, I hope you will accept, the reward is very generous. The woman beside her stayed silent. What is the reward? As expected to then was hooked. Sister Van. Tiger Girl prompted, signaling her companion to speak. 2 skill scrolls. The woman in her late 20s produced them, one is a passive buff that within a certain range adds 3 basic damage for allies, the other is a summoning skill that can summon a rock fiend. Chapter 29, Duel 1. Tomorrow the people of the Celebrity Pavilion will run a relay duel with us in the arena, the commission condition is that we join their team and help them win this battle. Sister Van enunciated each word. Little Tiger giggled and added, simply put, help us fight one match, very easy, right? Sister Van gave a bitter smile because the Celebrity
NK
Pavilion
books.
has 8 members, all skilled. It is said they cleared the 2nd and 3rd dungeons and gained many attribute points. What Little Tiger said sounded easy but was actually a lie. Little Tiger was about to speak when to then cut in to explain. To survive well in the game many players are seeking partners of similar strength to cooperate. In old online games that would be called a guild though now the scale is smaller. As I know the Celebrity Pavilion is among the earliest teams, they already knew each other in reality and fought the novice dungeon together so trust is in place, now they have 8 people, each strong with high attributes, and the team covers all classes. With tight coordination. Realizing the situation was understood Little Tiger quickly closed her mouth and dared not babble. That is correct. Sister Van took a deep breath to admit. To then frowned in puzzlement, as I know those people do nothing without profit, why did conflict break out with you? At the same time Van Nan looked at Little Tiger to ask, where is Brother Hung, why are you going with others like this? Little Tiger shrugged and spoke coolly, we returned to White Lark City for a while and I still have not seen Brother Hung, most likely he has fallen. Van Nan warned herself that a small slip could mean eternal doom. Can anyone answer my question? To then asked coldly. I am thinking how to answer. Sister Van lowered her eyes and spoke in a deep voice, in the 2nd dungeon our team luckily got 2 party scrolls, just when the Celebrity Pavilion needed them so we traded, we thought it ended there yet in the last dungeon we were matched with Little Tiger and people from the Celebrity Pavilion. Hold on. Van Nan sensed something off, Hong Nan has 3 members, matched with Little Tiger and another person, so the last dungeon had 5 people? Yes. Sister Van nodded. Van Nan fell silent and doubted how the system matches teams. Should each dungeon not have the same number of players? Why did it feel so random? Go on. To then said. I will skip the process. Anyway, people of the Celebrity Pavilion surely believed Hong Nan had a special method to obtain many party scrolls. Sister Van said helplessly. Inside the dungeon we cooperated happily, yet as soon as we returned to White Lark City and he gathered all partners, he showed his fox tail. The Celebrity Pavilion demanded I hand that girl to them or they would trouble Hong Nan. Leaving aside how absurd their guess was, the girl did not want to join the Celebrity Pavilion. High force value cannot justify forcing someone to join. Finally their leader proposed settling it by strength. All members of the Celebrity Pavilion and Hong Nan enter the arena to duel. If we win they stop bothering us, if they win that girl must agree to join. After dueling will everyone die? Van Nan muttered. Sister Van explained, relay duel is one-on-one, when one side takes lethal damage their health is forced to 1 and they are ejected from the ring. They have 8 opponents while you have 4 for a relay duel. Agreeing to that is truly brave. To then sighed. Sister Van smiled bitterly, we had no other way, solving it in the arena is better than in a dungeon, in case they get angry and kill us. Yet they did not mind the number gap and allowed us to find 4 helpers. However, the moment people heard the opponent was the Celebrity Pavilion they refused. They said those guys cleared the 2nd and 3rd dungeons and gained many attribute points. Hong Nan surely cannot win. Some even advised me to surrender directly. It is only giving up 1 member. Nothing huge and not sending her to death, but I do not want to surrender. Unwilling light flashed in Sister Van's eyes because being coerced felt awful and she would not bow. The name Celebrity Pavilion spun in Van Nan's mind, while to thence eyes grew deep as if calculating. Sister Van sighed. After saying so much would the two still refuse to help? On the road Little Tiger praised their power, which made her half believe. Meeting them and seeing the fine gear on the support raised her hope, yet now she felt bleak and wondered if there was no solution but to wait for doom. Hey listen, after a long wait without a stance from them, To then could not help asking, you gave her 2 scrolls as payment, where is my share? Sister Van stared blankly as if not understanding, while Little Tiger weakly said, the rock monster scroll for the support and the buff scroll for you. As a main tank, what do I do with a buff? Is there no scroll for melee users? To then complained. Sister Van hesitated. Were they bargaining seriously because they were sure to win? Yet he knew the Celebrity Pavilion was not ordinary. I want both the rock monster scroll and the buff. Van Nan said while casting a sidelong glance at To then, just toss him a melee attack scroll and we will help you win. To then fell silent because the casual toss stung his pride. Fine. Van Nan strode ahead. You will not cry if you lose, right? To then still felt uneasy. Good then, I was only asking casually. To then stepped aside with ease. If the Celebrity Pavilion were not so numerous, would this lady need outside help? Sister Van gnashed her teeth. Wait and see, I will beat you to tears. Sister Van, after a moment's hesitation, Little Tiger reminded, these two are truly hard to handle, you must be careful. Even so, Sister Van lifted her chin and walked into the arena full of confidence. Moments later she came out pale with cold sweat streaming and legs weak. One more melee attack scroll is not a problem, right? To then confirmed. Sister Van spoke with effort and empty eyes, not a problem. Anyone abused twice in a row would look that flustered. All right, see you tomorrow. To then said happily. When only Sister Van and Little Tiger remained, Little Tiger looked at the sky and said, I already warned you. Sister Van gnashed her teeth and corrected in pain, girl, those two are not hard to handle but beyond human standards, they are humanoid bosses, your phrasing is far too gentle. Oh. Little Tiger accepted obediently. On the other side Van Nan chatted while walking, any thoughts? Likely the same as yours. To then replied. The Celebrity Pavilion needs a large number of party scrolls and will pay any effort to gather them. Van Nan said with a smile. To then followed, they cleared twice so member attributes are top tier, the number of players per dungeon is not fixed, one member of the Celebrity Pavilion went solo and was matched with Hong Nan. They exchanged a glance and voiced their conclusion. 7 people formed one big team to enter the same dungeon, and the extra one could only be matched randomly. One person signed 2 party scrolls at the same time, thus creating a 7-man team while one was forced out. One scroll allows 4 people to party and 2 scrolls make 8, which means 2 groups of 4, but if someone signs both, then in theory he belongs to Team A and Team B, so which one does he enter with? To make it simple, use letters. A, B, C, D are one team and D, E, F, G are one team. Based on clues, A, B, C, D, E, F, G entered the same dungeon because the binding by D tied the 2 teams together. That method still has a drawback. The team has only 7 slots while the Celebrity Pavilion has 8 members, so one will be split off to travel alone. Considering dungeon difficulty keeps rising as 7-person team clears more easily than a 4-person team, after clearing they gain attribute points, so the 7-person team becomes even more solid. When a 4-person team is not enough, this approach is very smart. To then curled his lips with joy. Seeing your intelligence online puts me at ease. He felt he no longer needed to fear a pointless sacrificial death. Thinking I no longer need to stay on guard against you every minute makes me feel much lighter. Van Nan sighed. Besides that, any other finding? To then tested his partner. Team Hong Nan likely has a secret. Sister Van handed out scrolls very decisively and did not look reluctant. An ordinary player rarely has such decisiveness. Van Nan analyzed seriously. Little Tiger's behavior is odd as well. Hong Nan is about to sink, yet she chose to join and showed no will to leave. Thinking again, it makes sense. Asking for help means Sister Van could not tell the truth, since wolves might be let into the house. That member of the Celebrity Pavilion probably discovered something with evidence and provoked them at any cost. The benefit is large enough to risk. If I am right, it is the player's talent. To then concluded lazily, therefore the Celebrity Pavilion must recruit that person to seize the resource in their palm. Chapter 30, Duel 2. When she arrived, Tu then was also strolling over, and Sister Van stood nearby with a bitter face as if forced to swallow gall. When do we start? Van Nan asked. We got played, Sister Van whispered. Besides you 2, I found 2 more. They had agreed but suddenly backed out. When we meet Dan Nan Kak, I will try to reschedule. She fretted that her girls were poor at PK and might drag the team, so it was safer to gather enough players first. You misunderstood us, Tu then drawled. The 2 of us are enough for their 8. Whether Hong Nan fields players or not is unimportant. Sister Van froze and thought that even if they lost there was no cost, yet the bragging was huge. 2 against 8 sounded absurd if they still won. Remembering the 2 absentees, she eyed the pair suspiciously as if they had been bribed by Dan Nan Kak to throw the match. Van Nan paced in boredom and asked whether the rivals would come unurged to fight quickly. Her tone was cool and unlike someone bribed. Such big talk. A group arrived led by a burly middle-aged man who snorted, "Mind the wind does not blow your tongue away." Van Nan sized them up and found all were hulking and broad-shouldered, and even the staff wielder looked sturdy. Dan Nan Kak, she asked while counting, and it was exactly 8. That is us, the leader answered with chest out. How should I address you? Call me Great Boss. Instead of Bandit Kings, her first thought oddly flashed to a cooking prodigy, then she rallied and said, Enter and fight to see whether I boast or speak truth. Hey! Sister Van gasped, since Hong Nan had not arrived and help was not fully yet war was declared. The leader examined her and asked if she aided Hong Nan. She smiled and said no and only wanted to beat them up, which stunned Sister Van. He curled his lip and waved that he was busy today and would teach her later, while Tu then hinted that the thing they wanted also interested the pair. The man feigned ignorance, and Van Nan set a relay duel with his 8 versus their 2. If they won, then Hong Nan would cooperate thereafter. If they lost, they would keep quiet to protect certain secrets, and she laughed that one should not show a treasure before certainty. The big men filed into the arena. Passing Sister Van, Van Nan murmured that if they lost, then insist no help was found and postpone. If they won, then troubles were solved, which made Sister Van realize why she cut ties to preserve another chance. Van Nan walked in calmly. Tu then went with her and asked whether she foresaw mishaps. She smiled that nothing is absolute and she likes to prepare retreats since it costs nothing. Tu then muttered a low probability guess that perhaps the rivals did not take 7 into one dungeon but 5 or 6 with talents and random teammates, though he felt it was near 0. He added and reminded her to be careful. Not every player could think of a 7-man party. and even if they did they might fail to trade 2 scrolls, and even with scrolls they might fight over bosses and mobs, and without clarity whether 7 per party could enter or whether difficulty scaled, any test demanded nerve and could waste hard-earned scrolls. By results the rivals succeeded. They used numbers to clear the second and third dungeons to gain attribute points, though the third likely split thinly, yet they avoided paying 200 points each and avoided death, thus 7 was a shrewd and safe plan and the thinker was clever. Though still a hypothesis, Toothen was almost sure they used quantity to cover quality. He himself rode talent and teamwork with Van Nan smoothly, yet remembered most players merely struggle to survive and finding a way through is already great. In the arena the leaders set rules deftly. Van Nan was here for the first time and found a central stage with seats around it. After setup he stood center and stared like at the dead and asked who went first with a flat tone. "I will," she said, and a system prompt appeared that player 3465 sought a duel with 3 minutes to confirm, plus notes on relay rules, stakes and victory conditions. She checked and pressed agree and Toothen did likewise. The leader laughed that they were newbies and mocked that the arena had permanent and timed effects, so if they lost they could not change minds or get a second chance. She answered that winning was enough and told him to begin. He roared and drew a con saber from his bag and charged. She coolly fired an ice bolt and cast a shield, intending to test him so she did not dodge. The blade hit and shaved 20 HP while the ice struck and dropped his health to roughly 70%. The first exchange used basic attacks without skills and she was untouched while he was gravely hurt. "All right, I see," she smiled. Her base damage was 50, so she inferred his stats: strength around 10 and agility around 7, a melee likely ignored intelligence and stacked constitution, yet losing 7/10 of HP to one ice bolt showed defense and HP were ordinary. Since the boss of Dan Nan Kak was no expert, the rest were likely worse. She shook her head and called lightning to leave him at 1 HP. The room fell silent because no one expected such a swift loss. In truth he owned a superb shield but looked down on a female mage and did not equip it, and when he sensed danger and reached for it a thunderbolt already stunned him. "Let me go first," a bowman stepped up, but the system reminded that player 520 had won and had 3 minutes to rest, and the archer realized he had forgotten the setting. 1 shield and 6 lightning casts had cost her 40 MP, but thanks to meditation she recovered in a little over a minute and confirmed round 2. The archer mounted the stage. The leader grew solemn and said the girl was strong. His men said not to fear because they had 8 and at worst they could suicide trade to keep advantage. Hearing them, Toothen smirked and whispered that they looked down on him and breathed so low that no one heard, saying that if he could not handle her then how could they? On stage the archer asked why she did not attack. She said frankly that if she used lightning he would die at once, but she lacked live combat experience and wanted a serious bout. He flushed it being used for practice and fired scattershot while grinning because even he could not predict where 5 arrows would land, yet she took 2 sidesteps into a blind angle and returned a reflected ice bolt that hit him. She stopped dodging and refreshed her shield to test the skill's damage. The ice arrow vanished, the shield tore, and her hair remained unruffled. The archer struggled for breath and tried to act but realized a second ice bolt had already hit and the duel ended, and as he left he vaguely heard her say that her footwork training was not just for show. He walked back with head bowed and a burning face. His confidence kicked off the stage, yet his mates stayed rational and analyzed that her damage was very high at about 50 and normal players could not tank a few hits. Perhaps she poured all points into intelligence to reach such numbers. "Let me go." The team's only mage stepped out with a faint smile full of confidence and said he also had lightning so they could simply trade thunder. Chapter 31, Trial by Contest 3. To then remained cold and indifferent, thinking that if someone truly wanted to duel lightning, they would soon learn what despair feels like. The archer was knocked away before reacting, and Van Nan's HP bar was nearly full, so she did not rest and immediately entered the next match. The mage mounted the stage and without a word struck a lightning bolt as a greeting, secretly wary because his leader had underestimated opponents before and lost, so he acted quickly to seize the advantage. When the bolt fell, Van Nan timely summoned a shield, but the shield shattered and her HP dropped slightly, leaving her stunned. The damage is very high. In the past the mage would have boasted and bragged he was the only true mage of the hall, a mobile fortress, but now he frowned and had no mood to boast. He had forgotten the opponent had a shield skill, and he was furious because if she kept shielding he could not hit her. Moreover, he had only 3 attack skills, 2 single target and 1 area, no defense or control skills, so he hoped Lightning Art would autolock the target while the other single target skill needed precise aim. Bitter in his mouth, He thought there could be no lightning duel since he could not hit her, and decided to let the artificer fight, using crowd control and magic bullets to win more easily. Van Nan muttered to herself and threw an ice projectile at the mage, not noticing if he replied. The mage, desperate, bled his MP recklessly and unleashed lightning art frantically. Van Nan wanted to train combat skills, but the opponent's continuous lightning denied her practice, so she both reinforced shields and countered with lightning. After 3 lightning exchanges, the mage fell. Van Nan regretted, would it not be better to fight slowly, why rush like seeking death? Her HP remained nearly full, MP consumed 34 points, and a short rest of about 1 minute would fully recover her. The tendons on Dai Duongjia's forehead twitched as he quietly urged, everyone calm down and think of a counter. He really meant do not rush to die, but since he was the first to charge, he could only speak gently. Dai Duongjia pondered and admitted, this plan is workable. Do it that way. Rely on him. The kids cheered for the artificer and entrusted him with responsibility. Never had the artificer been so respected. His heart surged with pride as if he were everyone's savior. A minute later the match resumed and the artificer stepped onto the stage. Van Nan did not hurry to act and instead curiously assessed her fourth opponent, noticing the hall had every vocation. The new player wore mage gear yet held a book. What vocation is that? She asked. The artificer, wanting the opponent to talk more to approach, answered, Artificer. What does an artificer do? Van Nan wondered. Similar to a mage in some ways, can fire magic bullets, can heal. He spoke slowly and approached Van Nan, then suddenly shouted, and can control. He then used a single target control skill, binding spell. Van Nan flinched, not because she was controlled but because the shout startled her. Binding spell lasts 2 seconds and costs 10 MP per use, and every 2 seconds he could fire a magic bullet. Though his intelligence was only 15 and base damage 26, without potions in the arena, it was clear he could chip away at the female mage's HP many times before MP ran out. Why was the mage the hall's mobile fortress while he remained a supporting role? Perhaps because early on some rushed to spend free attribute points. When a teammate reaches 20 points they get a special reward. The mage invested all into intelligence while he split points between intelligence and stamina and missed the special bonus, leaving him weaker than everyone. Although no one mocked him, the artificer was annoyed, and the Infinity Tower game forbade resetting attributes. He drifted between painful memories and imagining glory, hands never stopping. But 10+ seconds passed and Van Nan's HP still glowed healthy green, almost painfully vivid. 20 seconds and her HP paled a bit. 30 seconds and she had lost only half her HP. The book-wielding artificer's hands trembled. Murmurs of astonishment rose from the arena floor. Damn! How much HP does this female mage have? Dai Duongjia nearly lost his mind. Even a main tank like him would be game over by now. The mage's face drained, he hissed, this isn't a mage anymore, clearly an elite monster. Historically the word mage implied weakness, not someone with skin as thick as this girl nearing main tank strength. Listen, the core issue isn't just that. Someone pale and shaking said, if we lose again we will have lost 4 people. They all froze, suddenly remembering the match was already halfway through. How could this be? Panic spread as they realized each encounter ended before they could resist. To then watched calmly, preparing for his turn on stage. 10 seconds later the artificer's MP was depleted and he felt like crying while the opponent still had 1/3 HP. Van Nan fixed him with cold eyes and said slowly, wait until I recover functioning, you must die. The artificer fell silent. NK books. He used binding spell one last time and exhausted his MP, and Van Nan upon regaining freedom poured out MP, firing ice and lightning in succession. The artificer gritted his teeth and kept shooting magic bullets to chip at her. But Van Nan nimbly reforged her shield, and by the time he collapsed he could not deal more damage. TCH, too complacent, almost capsized the boat. Van Nan muttered. The artificer left the stage to heavy silence rather than thunderous applause. Dai Duongjia forced morale back up and said, you did well, rest, leave the next ones to the brothers. Someone murmured, if his intelligence were full maybe he would have one. The artificer's eyelids twitched, he stood frozen without reply because he thought the same. Dai Duongjia cleared his throat and shifted the topic, who goes next? The four remaining glanced at each other and shuffled, none daring volunteer. Her HP is only 1/3, does no one want the honor to beat her? Dai Duongjia attempted. Her HP is low but MP is still full, a pale man said. I think if we fight 2 more times her HP might even recover more. The archer sighed and was immediately scolded by everyone, stop talking nonsense. Leader. The one called out looked tragic as if about to die. Do your best, Dai Duongjia inhaled and encouraged, though bitter inside, for before the contest he could not imagine they would lack any chance to counterattack. Too strong, both sides are not same level, the mage wailed, like a top-tier deity came to torment newcomers. Someone lamented, we happen to get high attribute points, so why is she far above us? Thinking of that possibility made Dai Duongjia's heart sink. He looked around and slowly said, perhaps she relied on clear-grade power, having 2 attribute types already at 20 points. Silence fell. For the hall members it was clear as day, 7 of them cleared through danger. If one cleared normally with a team, their power would be unfathomably deep. Chapter 32, Duel 4. The archer watched to then standing idle the whole time and said in despair, one female mage already beat us half to cripple, and now a male warrior too, how can we win a relay duel, should we just surrender? Shut up. The crowd jumped him again. It is all your foul mouth. Could you not just stand there quietly? The gang glared at the archer and vented their anger in turn. You brats, as if me keeping my mouth shut would make you win. The archer snapped, I am only being objective, damn it, we thought we were doing great, now we met a real master, open your eyes and look. What do we do now? The mage saw their fighting spirit gone, mocked himself to ease the pain, clearly gave up the duel, and had to ask the big boss. So I do not need to go up and get abused, right? The 8th man asked timidly. The big boss glanced at him, saw his barely hidden delight, and fumed. The man coughed and explained earnestly, I am thinking of the team, losing 8 in a row sounds awful and shameful, that female mage is thick-skinned and hits hard, I alone cannot do anything, I am not good at brawling, I kept joining random parties and paying points to pass, my stats lagged the team by a chunk, if you all cannot beat them, I cannot either. That sounded reasonable. The big boss pondered, sighed, and walked toward Tithan. Tithan was bored to death, sat on a chair and muttered, lose again and the famed pavilion should be renamed 8 Straight Losses Pavilion, TSK, very imposing, such swagger. The big boss twitched an eyelid and felt this guy really needed a beating. We concede. He bit his lip and accepted, by the agreement, we will not meddle with Hong Nan anymore, but I want a match with you, how about it? No wager, I just want a fight. The big boss spoke plainly, thinking wealth is hard-earned, betting is wasteful, he only wanted to test if this man was as strong as the mage. All right. Tithan agreed at once. The big boss instantly confirmed the loss and set up a second match. Van Nan was still waiting for the 8th to go on stage when the arena notified that the opponent conceded and she had won. Before she reacted she heard the reminder to leave the ring quickly. What is going on? Van Nan stepped down, ran to the famed pavilion group to ask, acting like she was not an outsider. Hero, we cannot beat you, can we not just concede? Someone cried bitterly. We will take a detour when meeting Hong Nan later, please spare us. From now on bridges are bridges and roads are roads, hope not to meet again, thanks. Van Nan looked at a group of big men crying and playing victim and said with a wry smile, calm down, I do not plan to do anything to you, finding a 7-person party is not easy, comrades in the same faction are precious. Hearing that, they finally relaxed. While they talked, the big boss and Tithan had entered the duel ring. Our boss is very strong. The mage defended stiffly. What a coincidence, my partner is very strong too. Van Nan smiled. The mage fell silent. The archer asked boldly, compared to you then? Not much different. Van Nan said lightly, if he had no skill, I would have tossed him long ago. Hearing that, the archer looked at his boss with pity, yet the mage still doubted and asked, "How should we address you two? I have never heard of you." Van Nan pointed at herself with a grin, "Support," then pointed at to then, "Priest." The mage turned pale, a mage calling herself support and a tank calling himself priest, so the thing is real and even fiercer than rumors. They huddled and whispered. "I heard about this girl before, said to be super strong and able to farm all elite mobs. She has a male teammate who is clearly a tank but calls himself priest. If it is them, say no more, they are beyond human. I always thought it was a tavern tale, never thought it true. Damn, if asking their names reveals it, why did the boss rush in to get beaten?" Silence fell as they mourned their boss. Since changing gear on and off was too annoying, Van Nan stopped playing weak. She did not hide her strength, so when asked her name she told the truth and ignored others' reactions. Now she focused on the duel stage. She saw the big boss take out a golden shield almost as tall as her, clearly a high-grade item. So he had hidden depth. Van Nan was surprised. On the stage, the big boss held shield in left hand and blade in right with a grave face. The huge shield could cover him fully, yet he felt no safety. To then wore gloves, ignored defense, and only attacked. Fists thudded on the shield in deep booms, and the more he hit the more exhilarated he felt. He used to think his high defense talent made him a meat shield, but fighting the big boss he realized that high defense means he can attack with ease without worrying, so he changed stance and went all in. The big boss suffered and felt he had done something stupid again. Who knew where these two came from? The mage had high damage and thick health, and the warrior was the same. The shield in his hand was a top item with defense plus 10, yet his health dropped faster than the opponent, and the longer it went the less he could fight back. He knew he was no match for the ever more excited guy. "I concede." He had probed enough and did not want to waste time and shouted to the system. "We are only halfway, why are you running?" To then frowned. The big boss stored the shield and said bluntly, "I cannot win anyway, no need to continue." To then was speechless. When he returned, the moment he heard the two names his men said, the big boss staggered. So it was those two beasts, no wonder they were outrageously strong. No more fighting. He waved his hand and promised, "From now on the fat meat of Hong Nan belongs to you too. We will not bother them, we will not trade with them, absolutely no dealings." No need to be that absolute. Van Nan smiled faintly. "You need party scrolls, no one on the market holds large quantities like they do. Trading with Hong Nan will be more convenient." The big boss was startled and asked carefully, "What do you mean?" "It means do not cause trouble for them, but normal trade can continue." To then added casually, "You guys think well, dying early would be a pity. Our faction is better with more strong people." The big boss was overjoyed, though he could not recruit them to amass scrolls for a 10-person team. Losing yet keeping the status quo was already good. They looked like a bunch of fools. Van Nan sighed, who knew they were quite smart. "Do not judge by appearances, this game has every sort of person, we must stay alert every minute." To then paused, looked at the sky, and added, "At first meeting, I even thought you were an open book. A sweet naive girl who could not pass the first gate, turned out my eyes were crossed." Van Nan stayed silent. Outside the arena, Sister Van waited anxiously with 3 girls. Surprisingly, Chu Hu was also there. "I do not know how it is going." Sister Van could not stay calm. The 2 helpers had gone in with the Fame Pavilion for a while. They could only wait outside. "It will be fine." Ho Nu was fully confident. Chu Hu lowered her head in deep unease. What if they did not win? Just then the Fame Pavilion group came out cheerful. Sister Van felt her heart go cold. Did they lose? Unexpectedly, the big boss walked to Sister Van and said earnestly, "It was a misunderstanding. If Miss Chu will not come with us, then forget it. We will not force her, we will still need to cooperate many times later." Sister Van was stunned. "They will not force us." Sister Van wondered if her ears failed or this was a dream. "Looks like the 2 supports won." Ho Nu cheered, "I knew they could do it." Chu Hu relaxed and felt secretly relieved. "That is great." Then Van Nan and Then came out of the arena, and Van Nan announced, "We won. By the agreement the Fame Pavilion will not cause trouble for you." "That is wonderful." Hearing the confirmation, Ho Nu cheered again. Sister Van felt mixed, happy for the victory yet slightly uneasy about their overwhelming strength. Realizing the helpers were acquaintances, Shu Hu bowed her head to pretend she did not exist, but To then had seen her long ago and greeted warmly, "So you are with Hong Nan." No wonder, his words carried another meaning. At the same time Van Nan recalled the newbie dungeon where she played front tank for Chu Hu. Back then Chu Hu killed very few small mobs. In theory small mobs have very low drop rates. She should have had nothing, yet Chu Hu calmly produced black bread and handed it over. Chu Hu felt like falling into an icy pit and thought to herself that she was finished and exposed. Chapter 33, Preparation. Do you all know each other? Tiger Nu asked curiously. We met in the novice dungeon. Van Nan skimmed over their ties, then held out her hand to Sister Van. Where is the payment? Here. With the hassle settled, Sister Van briskly handed over the scroll. If anything comes up later, I look forward to working together again. Van Nan told Sister Van, then turned to Chu Hu with a meaningful look. I wish you a longer life. To then studied Chu Hu for a while, then asked, want to join our team? We have a pro carry. Sister Van's eyes dimmed as the phrase bringing wolves into the house flashed by. When she lacked strength she hugged someone's thigh, now a carry shows up and she acts aloof. To then shook his head in regret. I prefer to stay with Hong Nan. Chu Hu answered stubbornly. As you wish. Unexpectedly, To then didn't press and walked away. Once they disappeared, Chu Hu's taut nerves loosened a little. Are those two hacking, guessing everything without talking? Tiger Nu blurted out. They know but do not care, roughly that. Sister Van sighed, for now it is safe, keep building strength, in this game anything can be faked except power. Tiger Nu and Chu Hu nodded hard, while the other girl lowered her gaze, unreadable. Shike, what is it? Chu Hu asked. Shike raised her head, calm, nothing, I am thinking how to get stronger. When no one noticed, a strange glint flashed in her eyes. To then soon saw Van Nan waiting ahead. Take it. Van Nan tossed a scroll, and To then checked the description. Skill critical strike, deals 12 damage plus strength and base weapon damage, 10% to crit, each cast costs 10 MP. I already used the buff and summon scrolls, I do not need new gear now, better add a skill for flexible responses. Van Nan explained. To then grunted in acknowledgement. We had 14 red potions and 4 blue, after trading we have 25 red and 10 blue. Van Nan began dividing, I take 10 red and 8 blue, the rest are yours. Add some blue. To then complained, Holy Domain burns MP, plus critical strike, 13 intelligence is not enough. To then shook his wrist so the cross slipped down, and said, when I use Holy Domain I hold the cross, it counts as switching gear. Fine. Van Nan yielded reluctantly, 3 more blue potions for you. To then calculated, then said, 3 should do. They stared at each other, and the air turned awkward. Anything else, if not I am off to the intermediate training ground. Van Nan broke the silence, others' points are likely low, rooms are opening. Not going, I will stay with Hong Nan, with a carry I do not need it. Van Nan said coolly. To then arched a brow, you were eavesdropping? No need to listen, that is obvious, which is why I did not bother to ask. Van Nan shrugged, Sister Van uses a bow, clearly the person Chu Hu admires, in this situation she would not leave Hong Nan, people stay for feelings, otherwise she would have gone to distinguished pavilion, and as for our tempers, Chu Hu knows them, after the novice run nothing can be hidden, inviting for profit only earns disdain. To then muttered, still, asking costs nothing, if she has talent why not say it earlier? Say it so we can exploit her. Van Nan shot back, someone with tank talent happily plays priest, at first meeting who trusts whom? To then was choked for words. Chu Hu's talent is decent, but she suffered at our hands, so refusal is natural, unless she comes to us, teaming up will be troublesome. Van Nan said sternly. If there is nothing else, see you next dungeon, goodbye. She turned into the intermediate yard. Watching her small back, To then laughed in exasperation, even tragic lovers only meet in dungeons, fine, mutual use is enough, feelings only add trouble. 7 straight wins made Van Nan realize many things. She knew how strong she was and noticed a small issue. Meditation basics decide MP recovery, in short bursts it is unclear, but in a slog it matters greatly. Ranged basics take time at intermediate, yet meditation completes with enough repetitions. She glanced at the clock and saw she still had over 600 points, so she focused on meditation first. 12 days later she finished intermediate meditation. Stats became meditation 2, the player masters intermediate breathing. Each minute restores 40 HP and 60 MP. Keep 200 points as a safeguard. With that decided, she left the yard. Wandering around, she found equipment the most sought after, which made sense. Most players had low attributes. Gear raised combat power broadly. Next were skill scrolls that could turn the tide, though strong ones were rare. Most common were red and blue potions, beast traps, single-use cards, life-saving pendants, all sorts. After a round she sighed, everyone is preparing hard, doing everything to grow stronger. Tomorrow how many will remain in by Lac City? She shook her head, went to the diner for a good meal, then planned to rest early to face the faction war in the morning with a clear mind. But just after ordering, a middle-aged man came over and pleaded, "That is a lot of food, you cannot finish it alone, could you share some?" Van Nan was surprised. She saw a gray-haired man with an aged face, at least over 50 years old, and for some reason she felt a twinge of pity. "Sit and eat together." He brightened and sat quickly, afraid she would change her mind, and chattered, "You are kind. I asked several people and they would rather waste food than share. The world is harsh. I kept exactly 200 points as a talisman." The man lamented, "I calculated so carefully yet still slipped. I forgot to leave 1 point for the last day's meal. Is that not maddening?" He shoveled food with his chopsticks, clearly starving. Van Nan sighed, "You calculate well. Too well for my own good." He complained, "If I had spent 1 point on food, 199 points would be useless. I thought people eating here had money and would not mind a meal, but..." He heaved another sigh. "Eat?" Van Nan said evenly. She agreed to share but felt those who refused him were not wrong, others were barely surviving. Charity was a luxury. "Would you not be angry if refused?" he asked. "If it were me, I would never fall into having no spending points. Sell any item and I would get points." The man fell silent. "I have converted everything into gear or skills," he explained, proving he was not freeloading on purpose. "No matter, eat," Van Nan said. He bit his lip. "Then I will tell you a small piece of news as the meal price." "All right." Van Nan nodded, not expecting much. "As far as I know, novice dungeons are 4 to a team without exception, but from the second dungeon onward it is different. Mine was 6 to a team." He lowered his voice as if revealing a bombshell. "And then?" Van Nan's face stayed calm. "After exiting I asked around and found most were 5 to a team. I felt it strange, but then I understood." "Oh." Van Nan remained impassive. He smiled mysteriously and whispered, "When the novice dungeon ended, before the second began, the pure white faction had 5,768 players, which cannot divide into all 5-person teams. If the system does not want leftovers making things harder, it will split them and stuff them into other already full dungeons, so any dungeon with 1 extra member will be slightly easier." Van Nan suddenly understood. "Of course this is only my conjecture." He chuckled darkly, "Just hear it and do not mind." Yet Van Nan thought of something else and murmured, "If I recall, when the third dungeon ended, Pure White had 1,672 players, and Deep Black had 1,730 players. By your theory, in the faction war Pure White will fight outnumbered." Hearing this, he froze like a statue, and his chopsticks fell with a clack onto the table. Chapter 34, The Fourth Dungeon, Part 1. In truth, Van Nan stayed composed. She kept eating at an easy pace and said if this were a publisher-hosted tournament then someone lucky might win without fighting, but this is a survival game so that should not happen. In my view the system will set the number of teams first and then assign players. The Dark Camp has more people so they hold an early edge. I do not know how the camp battle will work but it will hardly be relaxing. Do not be polite, eat more. Finishing her analysis, Van Nan closed the topic. The man's eyelids twitched. This girl spoke as if this were a last supper so she tried to eat her fill. After waving his hand once and then again to confirm her belly was full, he hurried away. He felt that if he lingered a bit longer than tonight he would be too gloomy to sleep. She slept soundly through the night. The next morning Van Nan was full of energy and sat waiting for teleportation. Soon a bright white light flashed, and when she blinked she saw Then scowling beside her while 3 others stood nearby. Then the screen on each black watch displayed a prompt that said Main Mission. Before the enemy camp collapses you must not let any monster pass the teleportation array. On completion each player receives 300 points. After finishing the main mission a player may leave the dungeon at any time. If the main mission fails the player profile will be erased. Van Nan read the notice 3 times and confirmed this was a team wipe dungeon. Whichever camp failed to hold and let monsters enter the teleportation array would have everyone on that side die. In a moment they all would have to stake their lives. She steadied herself and carefully surveyed the scene. The dungeon terrain formed a bow shape, and at each bend a high arrow tower stood with 5 towers in total. Not far away a map with the same layout held 6 other players. She sighed to herself that the dark camp truly holds a numbers advantage. She wanted to run over to check, but after a few steps she had to stop helplessly. The 2 maps were separated by a white shield ring, and a mechanical voice reminded them that, in this dungeon, players from opposing camps cannot make contact and cannot attack. TSK, she had hoped to erase the opponents quickly yet could only watch their progress. Regretfully she drew back. At that moment one of the 3 stepped forward and said, "Quick introductions, I am a mage so call me Truong Fong, this one is Fa Kong an archer, and the one beside me is the main tank named Thiat Dao. This dungeon wipes the team if we slip, so allies in one camp should work together. Friendly fire is disabled so there is no need to guard against mates. Right, how should we address you two?" "Call me support," Van Nan blurted by habit. The mage's face changed at once. He turned pale toward Then and asked carefully, "Then who are you?" Then sensed trouble and lazily said, "Main tank, call me Tin Tien." Only then did Truong Fong breathe easier. "What is wrong?" Van Nan felt annoyed because his face changed so clearly after hearing her name. Truong Fong advised earnestly that, "Sister, next time when someone asks you must never call yourself support." "Why?" Van Nan felt stranger by the moment. "Because our Bailac city has 2 beasts. A female mage calls herself support and a male main tank calls himself priest." Truong Fong spoke fearfully that, "It is said those 2 are ferocious and no one who meets them ends well. You are support, so if people mistake you it will be bad. Who knows whom those beasts offended? What if they settle accounts with you?" Beast Van fell silent. Beast fell silent. Van Nan asked with a dark face, "Where did you hear this?" Truong Fong blinked and answered as if obvious that many players in Bailac City have heard it. When sharing intel people always mark those not to provoke. Rumor says those 2 recently fought players from Eminent Pavilion, and whether or not they took stimulants they still won. "Stop, dungeon talk first." Then cut in coldly. "Ah, fine." Truong Fong cleared his throat and said seriously, "The map is a bow shape with 5 arrow towers. I plan to block at the second bend, which is the second tower. That spot is best. First the monsters are hit by the first 2 towers, so when they reach us their health is shaved. Next if we still cannot hold then we can set a second block at the 4th or 5th tower. The team has 2 tanks so we can swap blocking. If one cannot hold the other replaces. The rest mind your MP and try to use normal attacks. This battle may run long." "All right." The plan sounded solid, so Van Nan agreed at once. Then asked, "Who goes first?" "Let me go first." Thiat Dao volunteered. Then agreed. Thiat Dao raised his shield with his left hand and gripped a greatsword with his right, then strode out to block the path. Van Nan suddenly spotted something odd and asked, "Isn't each player limited to wearing 6 pieces of gear?" Truong Fong stared in surprise and said no. Van Nan fell silent. Then had told her that back when they put on the true feeling ring, so she believed by instinct. Turns out she was tricked. Thinking back, the Eminent Pavilion boss also carried a shield in the left and a blade in the right. Her eyes toward Then turned unreadable. Then was just about to explain when Truong Fong added, "Normally it is true that one can equip only 6 items, but in rare cases monsters drop special gear like the shield on Thiat Dao's hand." "What about the buckler?" Van Nan pressed on. "All right." Van Nan reluctantly accepted that explanation. Tu then thought that without that quick cover he would have been condemned already. Just then Fa Kong's face turned stern and he warned, "It has begun." Everyone tightened up and set the formation to meet the enemy. Soon 10 wild wolves charged madly. Thiat Dao raised the shield to his chest and bashed away the first wolf. Fa Kong drew and loosed 3 arrows in a row. Truong Fong swung his staff and shot a fireball into a wolf's body. Tu then snorted softly and said, "Not a bad showing." Though still below him, it was above average by most standards. Van Nan moved beside Thiat Dao to grant him a barrier and then called loudly, "Stand within 3 meters of me. There is a buff that can add 3 damage to the whole team." Working in concert, the wolves' health bars fell quickly. The left-hand shield reduced damage taken for Thiat Dao, yet without Van Nan's barrier his health would still drop slowly. When his health was about to turn yellow, a white light fell and his bar turned pale green at once. Thiat Dao stared at Van Nan and thought she had healed him, so he thanked her. Van Nan rubbed her nose and had no face to admit that Tu then had just used Holy Realm to steal 2 little mobs. After that, Truong Fong killed 1, Fa Kong killed 1, and Van Nan killed 1, seeing only 5 wolves left and most near death. The system then released 10 more at once. Van Nan frowned and asked why so fast. The 5 did not kill slowly, yet the monster spawn rate was clearly faster. Faster now. Truong Fong led by raising his staff and launching a fireball as large as half a foot that crashed into the pack, and 2 died in a blink. At the same time, the white light on Thiat Dao flared again. Seeing that Van Nan fired an ice shot at the healthiest wolf, in less than 2 seconds the remaining 3 wild wolves also died. Fa Kong had drawn the bow to shoot, but by the time he finished aiming he looked around blankly. "Where are the wolves?" he asked Truong Fong. "I had not even attacked, so why are they dead already?" Fa Kong was speechless. There is something off about the white healing light on Thiat Dao. Truong Fong pressed his lips. If he remembered right, people once said that the main tank who calls himself priest has a similar skill that heals while doing area damage to snipe monsters. There was also a strange point that support has many buffs, yet her damage far exceeds a normal mage. Someone like that should be nurtured by a team, so why is she solo? Queuing. Thinking so, a thought flashed that maybe they had hit the jackpot and their 2 dungeon mates were the 2 legendary
NK
figures.
Books.
Imagining how he had just said beast this and beast that to their faces made his own turn green. Fa Kong seemed to sense the same possibility and said awkwardly, "If they truly are those 2, then it is not bad. At least we can stop worrying about a wipe this time." Yet Truong Fong felt especially bitter and not comforted at all. The more he thought, the deeper he sighed, and he felt he should give up struggling. Chapter 35, 4th Dungeon Part 2. Iron Saber thought it through and agreed that although the support could heal, MP in this dungeon was precious, so it should not be squandered on pure healing. 2 tanks rotating while the other recovers on the side is smarter. Iron Saber stepped back to rest, yet stayed ready to tag in at any moment, and he still did not feel that Starry Heaven was that terrifying. Taking the chance, Tu then moved beside Van Nan and whispered, "I just discovered something." Names can change and gear can hide, but attribute points and skills cannot, and that cheap sincere affection ring pair keeps announcing we are teammates. Tu then summed up with annoyance. "When power shines too bright, it cannot be hidden. I already decided not to hide," Van Nan said calmly. "Just play to our strengths and fight for last hits. This dungeon is hard, so stay alert to avoid capsizing." "Got it," Tu then replied and strode to the front line. In moments wolves rushed in. He buffed stone skin on himself and dove into the pack. Instantly 4 wolves circled and bit. "Are you insane?" Chang Feng growled on reflex, since a main tank normally just blocks lanes to cut contact count, and he had never seen a fearless type like Starry Heaven. Van Nan added a shield to Tu then and reminded evenly, "Keep the rhythm." Chang Feng waved his staff in a daze as Starry Heaven grabbed a wolf by the neck and hurled it like a dart, stunning 3 more, and even when his shield was chewed apart he ignored it, snatching wolves like chicks and flinging them into clusters. Chang Feng panicked and wondered how strong this man truly was. Breakvoid slapped his buddy. "Boss, the mobs are neatly clumped, drop a giant fireball and wipe them." "Ah, right." Chang Feng finally reacted. A giant fireball crashed down, then a rain of arrows followed, yet just as the wolves were about to die a hailstorm slammed in and a healing glow spread. Within seconds the pack was erased and Then's HP bar stayed bright green. Chang Feng fell silent. Breakvoid was speechless. Did you snipe any kills? Chang Feng asked flatly. Convinced by the duo's strength, Chang Feng sighed. Forget it, clearing is what matters. Iron Saber stood aside slack-jawed. See how I did? After the sweep Then spoke to Van Nan, and though he asked the question his modest smile with a wagging tail gave him away. Perfect timing. Van Nan beckoned. Come, I need a word. What is it? Then asked. Van Nan stared at her teammate and asked seriously. Anything you want to tell me. Really? Van Nan sneered. If I discover it later, do not blame me for turning on you. Then stayed cool and muttered. You already know, so why ask? Van Nan ground her teeth and pressed each word. You refuse to fix that bad habit. Are we that close? We merely meet inside dungeons. Then answered coldly. Van Nan went quiet. Then also paused. From the first wave I got a wind gem that speeds arrow tower attack. I already socketed it into the second tower. He reported crisply. Van Nan eased and added. I just got a lightning gem that boosts single target damage for the arrow tower. So it really is a tower defense game. Then muttered. How do I socket it? Van Nan sought pointers. Open the tower status and you will see one empty slot on each tower. Slot it there, once in you cannot remove it, and you can operate remotely. To show good faith then added that reminder. No wonder you never walk up to a tower. Van Nan shot him a look. Then felt helpless and annoyed. How did you know about my gem? What if someone else did it? Van Nan merely stared and then was stumped. While they spoke, Van Nan socketed the lightning gem into the first arrow tower. Right then 10 new wolves spawned. Then moved to intercept, and before he went Van Nan murmured a reminder. 2 gems are enough for now. If you get more, stash them in your bag first. I plan to. Then looked skyward. Do not spend your brains sparring with me. Van Nan said blankly and revised the note. If my mood sours, I will answer in kind. Yeah. Then waved and started the next fight. With arrow towers helping, the party cleared faster. This time Van Nan obtained a fire gem that made arrow tower hits cause bleeding for 3 seconds. During the lull everyone recovered MP. Iron Saber had been full HP for a while yet could not sub in because the rotating teammate was too capable and his bar stayed a lively green. So I am winning by lying flat. Iron Saber muttered. Chang Feng scoffed. No, the 3 of us are lying flat together. Breakvoid glanced at the dark faction and saw 6 players still stuck on wolf packs, so he felt lucky. If you want an easy clear, the thigh you hug matters. The 4th assault ended quickly and then received a water gem that slowed a target by 20% for 3 seconds. Fire, water, lightning, wind. Van Nan counted. We now have 4 attributes. Likely more later. Then replied casually. Breakvoid nudged his buddy and lowered his voice. Those 2 seem to hide something from us. Chang Feng looked back. You dare ask them? Breakvoid choked. So stand honestly aside and do not blunder. Chang Feng concluded. Clearing a dungeon without gaining strength is a disguised weakening. Iron Saber warned. Breakvoid nodded along. It is not that we do not work hard, we simply cannot seize kills. Iron Saber sighed. The 5th assault spawned 10 wolves and 10 bats at once. Bats again. Breakvoid grumbled. He drew and loosed toward a general direction without fine aiming, since the 10 bats clustered his wild shots still landed around 60%. After training for a while, Van Nan's intermediate ranged basics were unfinished yet her hit rate rose noticeably. Now she swung her staff and farmed bats with ice bullets with ease. Iron Saber watched like an outsider, sometimes eyeing his teammates fighting hard and sometimes glancing at bats swarming the 3rd and 4th towers of the dark side, and he sighed. Only by comparing do you see the gap. Yet as he finished, the map spawned 15 wolves and 15 bats. Heads up, human wave tactic. Chang Feng warned loudly. Right then Chang Feng shouted. I have a wide control skill, I can clear fast, if the split is 3 to 7 I will cast. He had tried using attack skills to steal kills but kept failing, so he changed tactics. Use it once to test the effect. Van Nan yelled back, unwilling to lose value. She also had area control, but it cost too much MP for handling bats. Chang Feng bit his lip and fired spider web, and a massive web suddenly spanned sky and ground. Bats swarmed in and stuck motionless, and wolves on the ground also could not escape. Tu Then's eyes lit up and he decided instantly. The bats are yours. Chang Feng hurled a giant fireball onto the web and the bats screamed and turned to ash, but the fireball burned the web, so several survivors kept flying forward and the archer used pursuit arrow to finish them. 15 wolves bunched tightly, so Van Nan finally threw down Hail to clear, while Tu then repeatedly opened Holy Realm, and in a short while the mobs were erased as everyone stood panting, not yet recovered from the fierce battle. Chapter 36, The Fourth Dungeon, Part 3. Damn it, with our lives hanging by a thread they still play mind games, Truong Fong thought with a dark face. Are you recovered yet? Tu then waved at Thiat Dao. Cover me for a moment, I need to rest a bit. Right now his HP and MP had been drained by more than half. The only good news was his meditation foundation had reached level 2, so his recovery was very fast. Thiat Dao wanted to cry. He thought if the next wave brings another 20 wolves and now they even swap roles, but he could not refuse since Tin Thien truly needed rest, so he quietly stepped into the middle of the road. Your control skills are really good. While resting, Van Nan could not help praising him. It burns a lot of MP, I cannot use it many times. Truong Fong replied testily. Then save MP and only cast when needed. Van Nan suggested. Truong Fong kept silent, thinking, I am not stupid, why do useless work? After throwing a web I should slam a giant fireball and that feels great. Well, can we say something? Van Nan urged. Stop arguing, fight like before. Tu then walked over and spoke calmly. Look across, after 2 more waves their side will be game over. Van Nan glanced over and saw the dark faction in deep trouble. 6 players had only about 30% MP left, so they would not hold long. Tu then said evenly. I do not believe someone over there would sweetly advertise that the training ground can drill real combat for everyone. Van Nan reacted at once. If most of the dark side did not use the training ground, they likely skipped the meditation foundation course and their recovery is poor. Potions can help, but supplies are limited and only by time. The foundation restores automatically for 24 hours. This also explains why the dark side has more players. Skipping training saves points, and when they cannot clear they just pay points to buy a clear. In other words, many players does not mean strong players. Tu then nodded in praise. Exactly. Perhaps sensing a critical moment, the dark players stopped hiding their tricks. Soon their first arrow tower became area attack and the second sped up its firing, with the towers helping their pressure eased and efficiency surged. Tu then fell silent. Van Nan also fell silent. They had not learned the foundation yet. Nobody dared hide skills at death's door. Truong Fong drew a deep breath and choked out. Can someone explain why the enemy towers suddenly do both area and ultra speed? I am even more confused than you. Van Nan muttered, thinking hard. Gem effects are not that strong, each tower has only 1 empty slot, how did they do it? Who said 1 slot? Arrow towers clearly have 2 empty gem slots. Truong Fong corrected. Tu then suddenly understood. It must be level up. As the dungeon difficulty rises, the number of gem slots increases. Our lives are at stake, can you two stop hiding already? The sense of danger spiked and Truong Fong growled out of control. After leveling, the arrow tower works harder than you two, keep secrets and we will capsize. Fine. Van Nan owned up. Fire gem adds a burn for 3 seconds, water gem slows by 20% for 3 seconds, lightning gem boosts single target damage, wind gem boosts attack speed. By my analysis, lightning plus wind equals ultra speed. Right now our first tower has lightning and the second has wind. Fire attribute. Fire, then slotted into the first tower. After some calculation, Van Nan concluded. Then I will pair water with wind so monsters near the second tower get slowed, which equals continuous crowd control. Do it. Truong Fong's look improved and he ran to the first tower to inlay the gem. I think some pairings are bad, so skip them for now, Van Nan said without shame. Besides, we are stronger, so under equal conditions we will outlast them. Makes sense. To then sighed and mocked himself. I thought our effort was wasted, yet we stand atop the food chain. Who knew this broken game would rewrite rules and by casually adding 2 gems to a tower you surpass a top player? After a long pause, Van Nan said. Under the eaves one must bow. She implied the system is the boss, it dictates how to play and everyone obeys. Yeah, I know, I was just venting. Tu then replied. The gems were quickly set and the combo effects appeared. Fire plus lightning gives a 20% chance to deal triple damage. Water plus wind reduces target speed by 40% for 5 seconds. At that moment 20 wild wolves and 20 bats spawned together. The extra gems clearly boosted the towers and every 5 shots there was a triple hit, so a single arrow could drop a bat. Van Nan's eyes moved and she tried Hailstorm on the bats. In a blink 8 or 9 died. In this case Hailstorm saved more MP than lightning. So when the flock entered the second tower's range and got slowed, Van Nan used Hailstorm to wipe the rest. The sky was cleared and only 20 wolves remained on the ground. Why did you not use an AoE on the bats earlier? Tu then complained. I forgot. Van Nan thought seriously. I only remembered Hailstorm as low damage control and forgot my attributes are high. The synergy still kills the bats. Truong Fong cursed inwardly that even this could be forgotten. Truong Fong went quiet. He felt stuck and realized they were back to snatching kills like before. Fa Kong stood aside accepting fate, drawing his bow to snipe and finish wolves that the towers had nearly killed. Although the 3-7 pact was void, Van Nan still only used ice bullets on the wolves and did not snipe kills with skills. What are you doing? Unconsciously Tu then leaned close and asked softly. We already ate the meat, we should not keep even the soup from others. Van Nan whispered back. Be honest. Tu then did not buy it. Do you think today is the first day I met you? Only then did Tu then relax. Van Nan chatted idly but kept more than half her attention on the other side. Just then Tu then spoke. The first tower is area and the second is ultra speed. That layout is not ideal. To avoid wasting area damage they should push the line between the first and second towers. Once monsters breach the line, chasing them is a pain. To prevent accidents they must gem the third, the fourth and the fifth towers as well, yet combos are much stronger and single gems are weaker. Still there is no choice because without pushing forward they cannot herd monsters. If they cannot herd then area and single target barely differ. The first tower's effect is wasted, all because this is everyone's first time with gems and no one knows what combos do, so they pair at random. Good luck makes good combos and bad luck is hard to fix. Van Nan said seriously. Talent is luck, meeting a player like Onso who breaks conventions is luck, having many experts on the same side is luck. Luck is part of strength. I do not fear bad luck, I only fear a system that breaks principles. In fact, when I saw Dark had more people I quietly exhaled. Tu then laughed. What a coincidence, me too. No matter the early survival phase we cannot deny Dark's advantage is headcount. Van Nan said. With uneven numbers, if the system helps the weaker side for so-called fairness, that is true unfairness. Tu then continued. It means all prior effort can be erased. Once inside a war dungeon the system can delete your edge. I build advantage bit by bit to widen the gap, and if that edge gets erased for no reason I will cough blood. Van Nan said firmly. Luckily the system did not do that and it ignores Dark's numeric edge. Tu then smiled with confidence. As long as it stays hands off I believe we can win to the end. Suddenly a notion struck Van Nan and her face turned odd. Is there one extra player a kind of balance because the two of us are too strong? To Then's face darkened and he snapped. Do not jinx it. Chapter 37, Dungeon 4, Part 4. Following instinct, Van Nan glanced back and saw Fa Kong gleefully clasp a bracelet onto his own wrist, utterly unbothered that it was a feminine style. Only then did she notice the other three still had not gathered enough gear. To Then seemed to ponder something and spoke. Let them do more grunt work and pick up more gear so our side grows stronger. Agreed. Van Nan echoed. If you cannot take it anymore, fall back. Van Nan shouted. Thiet Dao jolted and wondered that if he retreated then who would tank the monsters, would it be Tin Tien, but the break was too short and Tin Tien had not recovered his best state. With both tanks battered, how could they clear? While his mind was drifting, a shield suddenly covered him and a magma golem appeared before him to take the wolf's blows in his stead. Thiet Dao fell silent. The magma creature barged straight into the pack without fear, and Van Nan raised her voice again. Move fast, the summon only has 150 HP and lasts 1 minute. Fa Kong at once sped up and drew his bow until his arm almost cramped. Truong Fong bit his lip and hurled a fireball into the wolves. Before long the field was clean and as 1 minute ticked by the magma golem vanished. Van Nan stole a moment to check the rival team and found they ignored the bats to focus on the wolves. At first she was baffled and suspected they had a death wish, but after watching a while she understood. The third tower was socketed with a gem combo. When bats flew by the tower auto-fired and any bat struck would bleed for 5 seconds. For wolves 5 seconds was nothing, but bats had low HP and had already taken chip damage from the first 2 towers. With missing health they died as soon as the bleed procced. Using this to deal with bats is not wrong. Van Nan stroked her chin and tried to recall which combo caused the bleed. You want to copy the arrow tower over there. To Then needed only a glance to read her mind. But the arrow tower does not drop loot when it kills. To Then reminded. There is no other way, lives come first. Van Nan traced a small circle over her teammates as she called roll. Look, MP is in such a state, there is not even 20% left. The three named lowered their heads, among them Thiet Dao felt especially apologetic. The magma golem feared no death and charged bravely. He asked himself if he could do the same and knew he could not. Compared with Tin Tien he could accept losing, yet losing to a summon hurt his pride. In truth he was not that weak among players, it was just that this dungeon turned him into deadweight. The more he thought the more it stung. To Then mused for a moment and nodded. Adding one more effect is good. This was a war of attrition. Potions, HP, MP and stamina were being drained across the board. To be safe they indeed needed an arrow tower dedicated to bats. So the question is which combo actually causes bleed? Van Nan frowned and produced a fire gem. We can be sure fire must be part of it. Then is it fire plus water or fire plus wind? Van Nan struggled. She had both water and wind gems yet did not know the pairing. Thinking it through, both seemed able to cause bleed. Truong Fong raised a hand boldly. I cast 1 vote for fire water. What do you think? Van Nan sought To Then's opinion. Listen to me, it is fire wind. To Then was decisive and confident. Books. My gut says that is it. Bang. Van Nan decisively slotted a water gem into the arrow tower. To Then was speechless. Van Nan explained. Your luck is terrible. I asked you only to eliminate the wrong answer. The turn of events surprised everyone. Truong Fong's face went blank and he shrank back a little. To Then gnashed his teeth and thought that if not for the sincere feelings rings binding them he would have settled accounts with her already. When the effect proves wrong, do not regret not trusting me. He lifted his chin arrogantly. Van Nan asked with sincere curiosity. Then if the effect proves right, will your face sting? Whether it stung or not he only knew his teeth itched. Fire-water combo, the target hit will bleed continuously for 5 seconds. See? After checking the effect Van Nan grinned smugly at To Then turned away and sulked in silence. The other three wisely edged farther back. Mutual love and mutual slay, huh? Fa Kong whispered in amazement. Outwardly they unite against outsiders, once done they cheerfully wage a civil war. Truong Fong's keen eyes captured the Then and Van Nan dynamic exactly. Thiat Dao still could not get it. How come those two do not stab each other in the back? How can they trust the other to guard their backs? Perhaps love is the reason. Truong Fong judged at random. The only one allowed to sabotage the other is oneself. Thiat Dao was speechless again. I almost thought I was watching a melodrama. Fa Kong sighed. After a few lines the monsters arrived again. Van Nan had thought this wave would be elites, yet it was still the old human wave, with 25 wolves and 25 bats. If this keeps up, maybe after a few more rounds 100 monsters will charge together. Van Nan muttered. We will not last that long. Then said flatly. Even 80 charging together would already break us since nobody is at full health. Van Nan suddenly recalled something and instinctively looked across. Just then a player on the dark camp ran out of health and turned into a white beam. Van Nan's lips curved. The main tank on the dark side cannot hold anymore, everyone hang on a bit longer. Then came to a realization. Strong tanks are few, failing to hold is normal. Thiat Dao was already a solid player, yet even with full health he could not withstand a single focused assault, so the other side's tanks would not fare much better. In other aspects the dark camp healed worse and their MP was nearly empty. They had only gritted their teeth to persist until now. With more monsters and rising pressure, collapse was easy. After weighing it all, Then smiled slightly. With their main tank dead, a team wipe was not far. Quick on the uptake, Fa Kong calculated the pros and cons and then dumped skills in a flurry, burning MP non-stop to kill more before the run ended. At the same time Truong Fong cast webs and a giant fireball to sweep with maximum efficiency. Leave 2 to test the arrow tower's effect. Van Nan shouted, and as she spoke she shot a dark look at Truong Fong. Truong Fong started and let 2 bats fly off before resuming the cleanup. The 2 bats with half bars of health entered range and the tower reacted at once. After being hit they started bleeding and 3 seconds later they bled out and died. Van Nan bowed her head and calculated. It seems future gem socketing will be enough to sway battle outcomes. We must study it carefully. The dungeon was nearly done, so Then lazed on direct fighting and simply threw monsters into the 3rd tower's kill zone. He spared a glance at the other camp and saw only 4 remained while wolves and bats were raging toward the teleport array. It was clear they could no longer stop them. It is not really a waste. Knowing each combo's effects lets us decide more accurately in the next dungeon. Van Nan said mildly. Then gave her a look and reminded her. For such things just ask around next time, no need to test on ourselves. Van Nan went quiet since she had never thought to ask because. What if they lie? Ask many people, if answers match it is likely true, if they differ then hold doubt. Then sounded annoyed. Besides, who would lie on purpose to earn 2 stronger enemies for themselves? Van Nan thought and found it reasonable. From the start she had trusted only herself and never considered canvassing others. Thinking like that, then yes, we did waste gems. Van Nan said with regret. Then cast a slightly odd look at their little teammates, then he turned away and spoke in a stiff tone. Forget it, you do not have clairvoyance, you could not have known when they would run out of potions or when their main tank would die. Such things cannot be predicted, so some waste is unavoidable. Then coughed lightly and resumed fighting in earnest. Van Nan could not help but sigh. These people were not as diligent in the direst moment as they were now. Knowing this was the last chance to scoop up drops, everyone fought like mad and spent every ounce of strength to steal kills. When a bat on the other side reached the teleport array, all monsters in the dungeon vanished at once and a mechanical voice declared. Game over, the pure white camp is victorious. Chapter 38, Incident. Van Nan quickly realized that there were no attribute rewards or points this time. The Truong Fong group happily inspected their loot, clearly having found good items at the last moment. Knowing the dungeon had fully ended, Van Nan relaxed completely and felt utterly exhausted. She said to Then, I'm going to rest first, meet at 8 o'clock in the morning at the training ground gate tomorrow. Then replied. Teleported back to Baklak City, the machine voice announced the post-battle situation. Before the 4th dungeon, the number of players in the White God camp was 1,672. the number of players in the dark camp was 1,730. Currently the pure white camp has 850 players remaining, the dark camp has 851 players remaining. Please keep up the effort. Van Nan muttered to herself, the numbers are almost equal, so everyone is back to the starting line. I wonder how many skilled players there are among them and how many cheated through the trial. She shook her head and would not think further, then brushed her teeth, washed her face and fell into a peaceful sleep. A night of good rest. The next morning the training ground was full. To Thence expression soured, the training ground is crowded. He added, last time people hoarded points to buy lives, now that points cannot be used in the camp battle they hurry to spend their points. Van Nan understood, moreover this time only the winners may leave the dungeon so everyone already had 300 points. The camp format makes everyone aware of the importance of self-recovery. 850 people, each with 300 points, the intermediate training ground gives 4 points per hour, with 8 hours of training per day per person by intensity. She thought for a moment then shook her head in regret, there are still too many players. Many people means crowding. To Thence eyes flashed and he said gravely, 2 more camp battles, and perhaps there will be no need to scramble for rooms. Distant water cannot quench nearby fire. Van Nan said while eating, we cannot just wait, one must know that at every moment someone is chasing after your steps. Let me think it over. To then pondered. At that moment someone came to their table with a sad face saying, I want to talk to you. Van Nan was surprised, Chu Hiu? She wondered why this girl approached them. To then moved over and made room, sit. Chu Hiu sat down without hesitation, her serious look making it clear the matter was important. What is it? Say it. Van Nan asked curiously and glanced around to ensure no one was near before she relaxed. Chu Hiu inhaled deeply and said seriously, I will agree to join the group, on the condition that you help me kill a few people. Are you joking? Van Nan doubted, with Chi Van here why would you join us? What if you use us and run? Chu Hiu's voice grew dry and her expression stiff, Chi Van, she is dead. To Then and Van Nan exchanged looks of clear astonishment. To then asked suspiciously, if she died, how did you return here? Chi Van was an archer and did not need to tank first, if she died it would mean the main tank sacrificed and the team wiped, but Chu Hiu was still alive sitting here. She did not die from the dungeon, she was killed by players. Chu Hiu spoke through clenched teeth. Hong Nan had 4 members in total, Chi Van, me, Hai Thuok and Ho Nu who recently joined. Everyone was saved by Chi Van so we were united. I always believed that. She inhaled, there were 7 of us in the last dungeon. To then said simply, so it was. Chu Hiu snapped when their faces did not change, did you 2 already know a 7-member team was possible? Why didn't you say so earlier? Chu Hiu exploded. And you? Why didn't you tell us this secret you knew? To then asked bluntly. Chu Hiu was stunned and could not answer. Van Nan pursed her lips and found it funny, do you think why the famous people faction wanted you to join? Because they lacked that team formation book. That sentence struck Chu Hiu like thunder. Don't stare blankly, continue. To then tapped the table, 7 members then what? The last dungeon waved friendly fire, how did they kill people? They had a player with a talent. Chu Hiu regained composure to answer. Van Nan asked, what talent can change the rules of the game? To then exclaimed, a truly insidious talent. Because the dungeon rule waved friendly fire, ordinary players would expose their backs without worry, and if the opponent used an invite to fight card and attacked repeatedly until death, the victim would not even know what happened. Chu Hiu continued, after using the invite to fight card, Chi Van was ambushed and killed. While I was stunned, Ho Nu also died. Then Hai Thuok stepped toward that group. Van Nan asked, how did you survive? To then leaned in, talent, super lucky star. After killing monsters it increases drop rates. If a monster is guaranteed to drop items, the player receives 3 times the items. Chu Hiu confessed, they said it was aimed at me. Regret shone in her eyes. If I had not been in the team, Hong Nan would not have had this happen. I caused Chi Van and Ho Nu's deaths. She regretted that if she had joined the famous people faction earlier, none of this would have happened. Van Nan silently realized the super lucky star talent was powerful, but if its owner could not protect themselves and others knew it, they would be attacked since she was easy prey. That Hai Thuok is truly cruel. Tu then mused. Unexpectedly, Chu Hu shook her head. Hai Thuok was originally one of them. The team had 5 people. Hai Thuok had to leave to be matched elsewhere. She had an invite to fight card and enough points, so she did not worry about her safety. In the second dungeon, I met Hai Thuok and Chi Van and thought they were trustworthy teammates, so I revealed my talent. She bit her lip. From then on, Hai Thuok planned it, purposely stayed as the Hong Nan monitor. When the famous people faction came to cause trouble, she probably discovered the 7-member team method. Van Nan said, I thought you would grow wiser after hardships, but you still told a stranger your talent. Tu then nodded sympathetically. Are female players trustworthy? Female players are the most scheming. He glanced at Van Nan insinuatingly. Van Nan snorted and scolded inwardly that he was not innocent either. Chu Hu timidly begged, so can you two help me? She promised, if you help, I will join afterwards and obey you. Van Nan and Tu then exchanged a look as if discussing strategy. Tu then raised the first question, how many of them are there? In Bak Lak City, attack among players is forbidden. How can we help you? Van Nan asked irritably. Chu Hu offered, team with me, enter the next dungeon together. Van Nan skeptically asked, if we kill those 4, how do the 3 of us clear while being low on HP and MP? Chu Hu hurriedly added, I can provide red and blue potions. Tu then shook his head, that is not the reinforcements issue, the basic problem is too few people. He disagreed. Van Nan pressed, how many invite cards and friendly fire immunity cards do they have? If they have many immunity cards, we cannot attack. And if they ambush us, they can overturn everything. Chu Hu could not answer. Tu then concluded, we cannot help with this, find someone else. Chu Hu worriedly said, if even you two cannot do it, I cannot think of anyone else who can. Thanks for your trust, but we cannot do it either. Van Nan stood firm. Chu Hu tried to persuade, I will tell you all I know. I will hand over the skill tome, potions, and equipment. Tu then shrugged, honestly the final condition is the least attractive. Bringing you along is bringing trouble. Chu Hu still thought the offer attractive. Van Nan had already sensed something off. Tell me, are you hiding something? Would you spend all your assets for revenge? Impossible, unless Chi Van was your true love. Chu Hu's face grew anxious and she clenched her hands, silent. Tu then suspected, you are not trying to push us into a trap, are you? Chu Hu denied instinctively, I am not. But still would not explain everything. You said one true sentence, and the story becomes 10 times clearer because of it. Chapter 39, Unintended. Chu Hu showed resistance, as if she could not easily choose. She struggled for a long time, and seeing Van Nan about to stand, she hurriedly called back, wait, I'm telling the truth. Hurry up, we are busy. Tu then replied indifferently. Chu Hu bit her lip and finally spoke frankly, in the dungeon Hai Thuok said if a player is killed their talent becomes a skill tome but weakened, so they do not want to easily kill me, if I do not obey they will not keep me. In short, unless I sign a master-servant contract binding life and death with one of them, they would rather take a weaker skill tome than let me live. I do not know if they told the truth, but I was surrounded by 4 people then, not obeying meant death. I want to live and seek revenge, so I agreed to sign the contract. In other words, you signed an empty note from the start, if they die you die too, you cannot join our team. Tu then touched his chin and sighed, you learned badly. Chu Hu awkwardly said, I can give everything to you too. Since they did not want her in the group anyway. Van Nan's mind turned quickly, instinct told her Chu Hu spoke truth because they once obtained the frenzy skill tome that fell from On Lak and its effect was clearly weaker when On Lak used it. This is a bit troublesome. Van Nan was annoyed because the invitation immunity card was too problematic. Shu Hu felt hope and, ignoring the pastor's teasing, pleaded, I can also tell you the effects of the gem combinations. Oh? Van Nan was curious, tell us. About to ask how she knew all 6 combinations, Shu Hu continued, after socketing gems by a combination you can still remove them, but removed used gems vanish, if not removed the effect is permanent. Because of my talent they tried every combination while in the dungeon. Also I still have several gem blocks in my personal inventory. Gems made to Van's eyes light up. Van Nan despised him immensely because he lost self-control at the hint of something good. Still Then kept reason, swallowing his joy and showing a sorrowful face, if we cannot solve the invitation immunity card problem we cannot do this. Shu Hu found her ideas unusable and decided to tell the full facts so they could think of a plan. She continued, a limited dungeon allows 3 card uses. Then asked immediately, how many cards do you have on you? Shu Hu embarrassed, not even 1. How are the cards generated? Then pressed. A card is generated automatically every 48 hours. Shu Hu answered. After signing the contract she knew many things. If there were 3 cards use them all, set free attack mode and you can act smoothly. But where to get 3 cards now? Then worried, before the dungeon battle begins more than half the team is already paid off which is troublesome. After much thought Van Nan still refused, fearing she might pay with her life for a slip. Shu Hu despaired, because she revealed gem combination effects. Then's kindness rose and he suggested, you go and steal 3 cards here, or wait for them to clash with others and act in secret. But I signed a contract with them. Shu Hu was baffled. Yes, but if I die he is not affected at all. Shu Hu angrily, also if I act oddly he can kill me with a thought. You only signed the contract with one person, not all, you can take the chance to kill the others. Then said carelessly. Worst case you die, dragging several down is acceptable. Start with the one you hate most. Kill others while not resisting the one bound to you, that person might not turn on you. His words opened a new door in Shu Hu's mind. Usually pretend nothing is wrong, as if you accepted fate. When acting, be ruthless and decisive, best to cut down several at once. Then seriously taught the trap method. Shu Hu nodded as if she understood. Van Nan could not bear it and interrupted, this will do for now, the main thing is do not let them detect your different intention. After she left Van Nan's face turned half smile. Half not and he asked, really no idea? Tell me a bit. Van Nan was curious, see if our ideas match. He regretted, honestly I almost melted. That invitation immunity card is perfect for trapping others, and after they are wiped out Shu Hu's talent will drop as a skill. Too bad this is too risky, not worth risking lives. Van Nan laughed, the idea matches entirely. They laughed and dropped the matter. After eating, the training ground remained crowded so they walked along the sidewalk. They cleared monsters and gathered many items, left potions and defensive gear, and Van Nan displayed the rest on the sidewalk. Every time I think a shop that buys odds and ends would be great. Then sighed. Van Nan agreed, yes, would save many troubles. Then a player ran over in amazement, oh my, so many items. Gear, skill tomes, tools. After 4 dungeon runs many still lacked full gear so choosing good items was common. How to sell these, someone asked. Gems, skill tomes, points, potions, anything. Van Nan answered. Gem combination effects are extremely strong, stronger than normal players, skill tomes drop rarely in small numbers. Potions are needed by everyone. To raise basic skills you need lots of points. The man felt suffocated as if suffering from poverty, and in the end he used gems and points to buy gear. Then whispered, buying gear with that face looks like being flayed. Their stall sold quickly. Some people who could not temporarily raise basic skills traded points for single-use items to boost strength immediately. Hello, do you two want a new commission? The newcomers smiled. To then raised an eyebrow. If he remembered correctly, this was the person who had been with Sister Van, likely Hythwalk. What commission? Van Nan asked coldly, as if unaware of Hythwalk's good deeds. Hythwalk smiled. I obtained a skill tome in a dungeon, take a look. She produced the skill tome. Secret area, special dungeon, medium difficulty, rich rewards. Dungeon exempts usual team formation and allows up to 8 people. After using the skill tome, the dungeon gate opens. She flattered, I thought it through, only you two are strongest and can take me through the dungeon. Where are Sister Van's group? Van Nan feigned ignorance. Those unaware would assume Sister Van's death and Hythwalk joining another team were separate and not realize she was a spy who led comrades to death. To then was very curious, what is the commission reward? After you clear monsters, whatever you obtain belongs to you too. Hythwalk had prepared this. We can join the dungeon without paying? Van Nan brightened. Hythwalk confirmed, yes. We rely on you two to bring the whole team through. No problem. To then agreed heroically. When to enter the dungeon? Van Nan asked. Is 8 o'clock tomorrow morning fine? Meet at the auction house gate. Hythwalk gave time and place. Fine. Van Nan agreed decisively. After a few words, Hythwalk left. Once she was out of sight, Van Nan's face turned cold and he said in an icy tone, I did not go find them to cause trouble, and they dare scheme over my head. Big nerve. Why did she not require payment? Because the skill tome that drops after she and to then die would be the best reward. She planned to use numbers, trickery, and the invitation card to ambush them while exploiting team damage immunity in the dungeon. Chapter 40, Secret Chamber 1. Someone had already plotted to make a move on him, and of course he would not let that person save face. After Hythwalk finished negotiating the cooperation, she walked away with an unusually light step. She quickly returned to the apartment and entered a room where 3 people were waiting. The leader in black sat silently drinking tea, then nodded to Hythwalk and said, You have worked hard. Hythwalk could not help but glare angrily at her. That is how it is, she replied without caring. If Hythwalk had not met them once, who would know how different they are? Just say you admire them and ask for help, and they will assist. Hoa Phuong, enough. The leader set down his teacup and shot Hoa Phuong a warning glance. Hoa Phuong fell silent and grudgingly said, Fine, out of respect for you, because Tan Long not only had talent for making protection cards and challenge invites but also had unexpectedly deep strength. She did not want to offend him. A burly man asked Hythwalk to confirm. You mean 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, right, Hythwalk? Hurriedly nodded, yes. She hesitated, then asked, Must we kill them as soon as the dungeon starts? Wouldn't it be better to use them to clear the dungeon first and strike later? Hoa Phuong scoffed. How can you be sure they won't pick up powerful items during the fight? The big man added, Those two have such fearsome reputations because of great talent. Capturing them is worth more than the clearance reward. If we give them time, they might notice and become vigilant. Players who have accepted challenge invites either die or join the team. No one suspects teammates in a dungeon, let alone imagines a hidden assassin. He laughed loudly. Hoa Phuong snapped, Bok Ho, stop laughing. Your laugh is unbearable. His laughter stopped at once. Bok Ho touched his nose, silent, not daring to offend the female assassin. Then Tan Long spoke in a low voice, Remember, strike immediately upon entering the dungeon. Do not target the man, concentrate fire on the female mage first. Huin Vu is dead. We need the talents of those two to strengthen us. The others nodded enthusiastically. Hythwalk asked, What about Chu Hu? Bring her into the dungeon, Tan Long replied coldly, Of course. After we kill the support and the priest, we will clear the dungeon. The nearly dead monsters will need her to finish them off. Hoa Phuong smiled with meaning. She is the tool to farm the reward multiple times. How could we leave her behind? Seeing the 2 people, Chu Hu nearly cried out but caught herself and remained calm so as not to reveal anything. Because she reacted quickly, the others did not notice anything wrong. But inside Chu Hu turmoil rose. This morning she was told to trap others, but she never imagined the targets would be these 2. Hythwalk introduced them warmly, Tan Long, Bok Ho, Hoa Phuong, Chu Hu. These are support and priest, Long admired you for some time. Tan Long greeted briefly, pleasure to cooperate. Van Nan replied perfunctorily, to then urged Hythwalk, can we enter the dungeon now? Enter now. Hythwalk said while using the skill tome. The tome opened and a heavy iron door appeared before them. To then asked Bako, you go in first to scout. They feared the others would mess with the tome, but Bako sneered inwardly. If anyone moved, it would not be on the tome. Smiling, Bako stepped into the iron door first. To then followed closely. Van Nan walked behind him, and the other four quickly caught up. When all seven were inside, the iron door slowly closed. After entering the dungeon, Van Nan noticed the map looked like a squared 6 with 4 arrow tower turrets at the corners. A mechanical voice announced, "Welcome players to the secret chamber dungeon. Objective, kill all monsters in the dungeon, total 100. Complete the objective and each player will receive 200 scoring points." The announcement continued, after completing the objective, players may request to exit the dungeon at any time. On failure, the system will automatically eject players. This run has friendly fire disabled among teammates. Enjoy that, Van Nan said calmly. It seems failure costs nothing. As she wondered when the enemy would strike, the system announced, a player used a challenge invite. Dungeon parameters changed. Teammates, before the announcement finished, Hoa Phuong flashed charmingly forward toward Van Nan and drew her dagger to stab. A dark beam of light covered Van Nan, and in an instant her base damage was reduced by 5. Van Nan took their cruelty lightly and was ready to fight before a word was exchanged. To then wanted to rush to help but was stopped by Bako. No choice, my task is to tie you down. Bako said reluctantly but with a gleam of pride. Then, relying on superior speed, abandoned Bako and dashed at Hythwalk. The group battle began with reckless hits like tearing paper. Whether in an online martial game or virtual reality it was the same. Bako panicked but could not match their speed and essentially could not catch up. Van Nan summoned a rock fiend to block in front of her and cast frenzy on Tan Long. The fiend roared and grabbed Hoa Phuong, preventing her from escaping. However, she struggled. Behind her a flurry of wind blades flew in. Van Nan raised a shield and focused on Hoa Phuong. 3 waves of lightning struck with an ice volley aimed at the neck, and Hoa Phuong died instantly. Before dying she stared wide-eyed to see the end of the one who killed her. 7 wind blades hit Van Nan, 2 broke the shield and 5 struck her body. Hoa Phuong's corpse vanished, leaving a skill tome in its place. Van Nan did not inspect it and put the tome into her personal item stash, then looked out to control the battle. Tan Long was affected by frenzy, his eyes losing focus. Bako chased to then but to then ignored him and stubbornly pursued Hythwalk to kill. Seeing Hythwalk's health bar turn red and obvious near death, Chu Hu immediately threw a fire orb at Hythwalk. On the way to the palace you meet acquaintances. Remember to apologize to Sister Van and Ho Nu. That was Hythwalk's last sentence. Use the protection card. Bako shouted in fury. 2 teammates were dead and Chu Hu clearly did not side with them. This fight had no chance to win. But Tan Long seemed oblivious. With bloodshot eyes he attacked everything in sight. He did not even order Chu Hu to die immediately, clearly abnormal. Bako's heart chilled. Their plan had been flawless, but events unfolded differently. Hoa Phuong was an assassin but the ambush failed. Tan Long fired a volley of wind blades yet support was hit and still full of health, nowhere near death. He wanted to grab the priest, but the enemy ignored him and chased Hythwalk instead. Chu Hu, though nominally with them, not only refused to help but aided the 2 others, delivering the killing blow to Hythwalk. Bako tasted bile in his mouth, feeling doomed. Tan Long was overpowering and alone kept the protection card for the team. Then Bako glimpsed Chu Hu smiling, a smile saying, "You people get your day." Bako roared in rage, "If you want to die you must die before me," and lunged at Chu Hu. "Old madam afraid, are you?" Chu Hu mimicked Sister Van's tone with a coarse retort, but before the sentence finished tears shone in her eyes. The one who saved her had died for her sake and Chu Hu could not help blaming herself. Bako's attack could not kill Chu Hu because a new layer of shield appeared on her. To then blocked Bako and they fought. "You cannot die," Van Nan said with a tone of regret, just as Chu Hu felt camaraderie forming. Van Nan added, "You still owe me the payment you promised." Chu Hu fell silent. Speaking sentiment to a fully calculating person made her feel foolish. Take it, take everything. Having been promised a great reward, Chu Hu felt relieved and dumped all her inventory onto the ground. Van Nan collected the scraps regardless of usefulness. "Kill him." Chu Hu turned to Tan Long with hatred. "Cut and kill as you wish." Van Nan generously replied. Suddenly Chu Hu recalled, "If he dies, my master-servant contract with him will also end, but whether a skill tone drops is unknown." "You would not risk that, right?" Meaning she might have to die before Tan Long. Chu Hu took a deep breath and asked one last time, "They will all die, right?" "Of course." Van Nan answered without hesitation, I do not leave tigers to the wild, that is enough. Shu Hu murmured, then resolved, you strike. Lightning flashed, and Shu Hu saw flashbacks of every level since she entered the game. Before turning into light, she told herself that because of the game she lived a little longer, so in hindsight it was not a loss. You are like a mirror, reflecting mistakes so the whole group may learn.